G'day, freedom lovers. How are we today? It's Sunday. All you Sunday sippers out there, I hope you got a bevy ready. Sips, ladies and gentlemen. Sips, ladies and gentlemen. G'day, Clark. How are you, mate? Good to see you here. So, be honest, how did the Friday thing work out for you? I personally wasn't a big fan of the way the test went down. I learnt that it takes hours to upload these things one at a time. For an hour chat, I think it cost or something to the effect of 4 to 5 hours worth of uploading the stuff around and try to do it piece by piece. It was certainly not a pleasurable experience from my end. I haven't had a chance to check the data to see if it was actually worth all that extra effort. I'm leaning towards no, especially since I've missed all you beautiful people and your wonderful comments during that experience. It was, it was interesting in the sense that, Michael and I were able to focus in and smash something out in just over an hour. But I think overall, it didn't really help the experience. I have discovered a few interesting things, though, going through and searching for stuff. So let me just, I meant to grab this before, but I realized I was out of rum, and that's a huge problem. Especially when I've got my special T-shirt on that tells everybody how I'm feeling today. It's definitely been a bit of that sort of a week. It started with children throwing up in my bed. It was great fun. It's always good to wake up at, I think it was about 4:30 in the morning, to the sound of children gagging and waking and turning over the light on to find there he is in a puddle of spew and he's got his head in it. It was a wonderful sight. And that consequently seemed to have led to me ending up feeling rather ill. I managed to keep it in my belly, but at least it didn't come out this end. It came out the other end rather forcefully. And some might say spray painting the dunny bowl. I'd go with sandblasting. Wasn't fun. But anyway, what was I looking for? Why can't I see it? Because I picked the wrong area. Okay, cool. Let's try that again. In the right area. So you might remember those of you who are watching on Facebook at least would have remembered that I did do a live broadcast of a pre-recorded scenario with Senator Rennick. Fortunately, it went to multiple places, and I could actually grab some screenshots of what transpired, because when I went through the Facebook stuff, I did discover that amazingly, these particular videos had disappeared. Now, I know what you're thinking. Batty, you've been saying that Facebook's going to delete the history in the past. Yes, I know. But they haven't done it yet. That's the funny thing, because when you look at this data here, when I was going through, I've made it a background. That was bloody dumb. All right, let's. Add to stage. There I am. Okay, cool. That doesn't work then. That's not going to work. All right. Sorry. I didn't realize when I did that, I took myself out. I'm going to have to do this again. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. So what I was trying to say, now I'll put this in the right spot, then it'll work. My bad. So what I was saying is that this information here is shows that there's no comments. Oh, sorry. That's from, you can see from the there's no data coming out. Particularly, this is Cafe Lockdown. It's not just me, but a lot of other stuff has absolutely no data coming out of the Fort Clow page. But on my own page, you can see here's plenty of data. But when it comes to the Senator Rennick things, those are the only ones, 3 in a row, that have no views, no reach. Not good. Not good, especially when we can see when I go to Rumble that, look, Jan Murphy commented, yes, it was true, Pam. There was a conversation going. Multiple people witnessed it. Multiple people were there. And I can see that it's still there on Rumble. There's no problem with Rumble. But funnily enough, X actually removed one of those videos, it would seem, too. For some reason, it didn't go just once. You could say it was a glitch because it is just one, whereas Facebook, there's clearly 3 in a row, and that's not happened anywhere else. So for some reason, Senator Rennick's been targeted. I have made the senator aware. I've let him know. He's just as baffled as I am. But I thought he's the best person to have that information, because it would seem that Facebook perhaps was playing a game of election interference. Perhaps we got to see it live, but what happened to it afterwards? Although Facebook has said they were going to delete the past, and they've been saying it for quite some time. I even got a reminder in my mailbox quite a little while ago. All the videos around at that time are still there. So I don't get it. They're definitely playing some funny buggers with Facebook. I've definitely also learned, through doing some checks around that Facebook does favor its own thing. Fair enough. What it wants is to bring everybody to Facebook. Once we crunch the numbers, well, I know a lot of you wonderful people who like to comment are coming from Facebook. We may have to look at using Rumble. What was that comment? He was using Rumble, because I was just about to say something about Rumble. I was using Rumble during my FB band drummer. It's pretty good, but the chat room is the best on Facebook. Yeah, I know. But unfortunately, algorithmically, in order to get the message out there, we may have to upload directly to Facebook after the fact, or something to that effect. We've got a few experiments to run to see what's going to work, because the important thing is we're getting our message out there. There's other things we can do, obviously, because Facebook says, you type in @followers or something like that to try and let your followers know, but it's limiting you because it wants you to spend money we don't really have. It threatens to ban your monetization. I've seen no friggin' monetization, I can tell you that much. And as we've seen with Cafe Lockdown in the past, like Cafe Lockdown itself has got a 10-year freaking ban. Why would we want to give these people money after they've abused us? Like, seriously, I'm not Stalin's chicken. If you don't know what Stalin's chicken is by now, you haven't watched this podcast enough, and you've got plenty of opportunity to go and look it up yourself. But anyway, that I digress. Let's get back to the point. We've got a lot to get through today. I will start with a very important piece of movie history here.
So, this is it, the last resort. You sure you want to go in here, man?
Why not?
I know this much better place down the street. The girls are cleaner, the liquor ain't watered down.
Sure, and you get kickbacks.
Hey, man, I got 5 kids to feed.
Take him to the dentist.
So, speaking, I've got those 5 kids to feed and all. I'd just like to point out we got a new promo on the Gaia Network that's come through. I've seen we're 2 months free on the Gaia's annual membership. If you're signing up, bonus content bundle featuring Dr. Joe Dispenza, Richard Rudd, Gregg Braden, and more, and a $50 gift card for Gaia Marketplace. That's actually cut some of that off, but sorry, I'll have to refer to my unlimited access to Gaia's 8,000 conscious titles. The link is in the description, or you can email me if you want to get a hold of that deal. That's a good one. And of course, hey man, I get kickbacks just like that fucking little movie history said there. We've got the Bitcoin thing going on. Just use the promo code REFJGWDH3 and you get 10. I get 10. It's a win-win situation for anybody who's interested in jumping into Bitcoin. If you've been looking at that, you know, the US seems to be pushing it pretty hard. I'm seeing a lot of things. I don't know how true it is. Only time will tell. The Bitcoin's going to go straight through the roof. So even if you've only got that 10, you know, you throw $10 into the account, you'll get 10. I get 10. You've now got $20. Chuck your $20 into that Bitcoin. Kick back. What do you got to lose? Especially if you can afford to spend $10, you know, that might turn into $50 by, you know, soon enough. Who knows? You know, that's one of those things. Don't you wish you chucked $10 into Bitcoin when it was worth 2/5 of fuck all? You know, imagine how much you'd be sitting on. You know, you would have got several Bitcoins and thousands and thousands of dollars. I wish I had done it back then, that's for sure. But I thought, this is crap. This ain't going anywhere. Why would you do that? Anyway, maybe you're more interested in do a little bit of trading, perhaps. You know, $10 free on Stake at the moment. There's a Stake app is one of the ones I'm using to play around and have a little bit of a feel, looking at certain things. I've been using X's AI to actually try and figure out what's a good investment and crunch the numbers. You know, you just got to ask the right questions. If you're not sure on how to use it and all that, feel free to email me. Just use the promo code or the link in the description. The promo code is MarkB228, which is an interesting number because it was randomly generated. I didn't create it, but I'm the 2nd of January, and 2 of my sons were born on the 28th. So go figure. It's pretty funny. Just interesting the way things work out, you know. Anyway, all that aside, I'm sure you're bored to death of this crap, but you know, look, I've got to try and make a buck somehow. And look, big shout out to all those who have dropped a couple of bucks here and there in various forms, such as by doing the Patreon. Big thanks to all my Patreons and all the amazing people who make a contribution from time to time. Oh, I remember. Screw your freedom. Yeah, true. But look, at the end of the day, I try not to look at Arnold Schwarzenegger as a person. Like, who gives a shit who he is as a person? I'm just looking at the movie. The movie was a good movie, you know, and back when that movie was released, actors didn't seem to get involved in politics, which was really good time. You know, don't you remember when actors just did their jobs and shut their fucking mouths? Wasn't it good? You know, look, he's entitled to his fucking opinion. If he thinks fucking, you know, it's funny coming from, you know, a place like Austria, you know, how things were really bad. And I think even in the movie Commando, he mentions, you know, how you know, the totalitarian regime of, you know, I think it was Austria or one of the countries his character was coming from at the time. You know, it's funny how, you know, you can come from one of these countries that's not so fucking flash, live in America for a while in freedom, and then turn around and go, fuck your freedom. Fuck you, man. Anyway, I'm not saying Arnold Schwarzenegger's a good dude. I just like the fucking movie. It's a brilliant movie. He didn't write it. Obviously, it's good. Anyway, sips. So let's have a look at today's show then, shall we? Let's get that back down. Where's that? All right. Meme world. Everybody loves meme world, don't we? You know, it's a bit empty without elbow memesies, but you know, look, we'll get into giving him a good kick in the ass. Terminator was a good movie. Actually, I was just watching that last night. How about Terminator Genesis? I felt the need to watch that one again. Actually, I think it's got a few stories to tell in that one too. Even though it's not a James Cameron movie, it's not bad. It's not bad. All right, yeah. Great concept too. You know, I mean, the whole Terminator franchise has some interesting concepts. All depends on how you look at it. But anyway, let's see now. It's a memesies. It's not elbow memesies, but they're memesies nonetheless. So, got all these little buttons here, and Which one's working the best? Oh, fuck it, that'll do. Hey, my background's changed. Oh, that's all right. I pressed the wrong button before. There's my background. That's better. All right, cool. Now we can continue. All right. They say cows are bad for the environment, but all they do is eat plants and fart, kind of like vegans. And it was an interesting concept. I seen a video the other day, and it was going on about and cows are the only animals that fart. What is the lunatic left really trying to say here? That we should eradicate all animals because they fart and it's killing the world? I've seen some jovial stuff, in children's books determining that, perhaps the dinosaurs died because they all farted at the same time. Pretty funny stuff, especially if it's in a children's book. But you know what? I don't think it should be taken seriously. That's just my thought. Why is there a tobacco tax? So that people smoke less. And why is there an income tax? Let that one sink in. More importantly, why is there an inheritance tax? Why is there a death tax? Why did the POMs come up with TV tax? Did they really have people's best interest in mind? They wanted you to watch less TV. That's why they have it. That's why they have a TV tax. Yeah. We're also talking about the nation to come up with window tax. And historically that worked out well. It just ended up with people bricking up their fucking windows. You can imagine the stench. Anyway, especially when, pommies are, kind of known for the term pommy shower, for instance. Climate change, formerly known as the weather. They did, Batty. Great reset. Sorry, I missed that comment. Anyway. Great recess wiped out the bison. Cheers to all pure bloods who in 2025 still have their DNA intact. Sips to that, ladies and gentlemen. Sips to that. Of course, I will drop a tear in my drink for those who were unfortunate victims of the propaganda and felt the need to go ahead and do that. I do know that, not everybody thought it was a good idea. Some people just lined up, anyway. A lot of people had to make that sacrifice. I know a couple of people who just said, look, I had to put food on the table, and are very pissed off at the scumbags who would say they chose to do it. Honey, what do you want to be when you grow up? A threat to the New World Order. Yep. Was it Skid Row said, you can't be king of the world if you're slave to the grind? This is a good one, especially seeing Star Trek is generally considered a lefty show. I keep asking people what LGBTQIA+, and I think they've added more there by now, means. But I can't seem to get a straight answer. I wonder why. Strange that. If you work 40 hours per week, you shouldn't be in poverty. No shit. Just seem to have just enough money to get by, just enough money to be broke might be a better terminology. And stop giving their money to people who work 0 hours a week. Yeah, sounds like a great, wonderful idea. North Queensland Freedom. Can you invite Jody Lowe on there? Is it FUCCP Cairns to Canberra Parade? Jody Lowe coming soon. Stay tuned. I'll reach out to him. I have had him on. I did say to him that I'd have him on again at another stage, just on his own. So, yeah, I've seen this one getting around. Dan and Kath run over and kid the Lego box. Good job from Danger Dan there. It's fucking well done. Well done. Of course, you shouldn't be laughing, but I guess this is the Australian way of dealing with, traumatic scenarios such as what's happened to this poor kid. Fucking dictator Dan, what a piece of shit. The project has been axed. Woohoo! The fucking fireworks and the party's going on. I mean, at the end of the day, they've probably milked the purse strings insane amount. Yeah, Total Recall, great movie, isn't it, Jason? But look, I think we're all glad to make sure that these turd burglars are off the bloody scene. Another one from the Danger Dan camp, piss off your loser. Danny No Mates plays golf by himself. It's gold. It's gold. It's like a gift that keeps on giving. I can only share one screen at a time. Actually, look, I'll insert this at this particular juncture in time just because it's relevant to that particular scenario. But there's this site that Vincent sent me. So thanks heaps to Vincent for sending this one through. track him, pin him, ban him. It's called Ban Dick Dan. I have dropped them a line in the contacts here to get an actual confirmation of what's been told, but they haven't gotten back to me as yet. So I'll keep you updated when they do. But apparently, this is a website for tracking Dan Andrews, banning him and making sure he can't go anywhere, which I think is a wonderful solution to a piece of shit that wanted to do that to everybody else who didn't go along with his disgusting regime. You know, in fact, I think it should be extended to not just Dan Andrews. I think the idea of track and pin and use their own ideas and their own system and their own plans against them. Be the mirror, as I've always say. Use that mirror magic and return the favor. What did they want to do to us? Yeah, let's turn it back to that, you know, old school Jewish style God, you know, the eye for an eye God, you know, the fire and brimstone sort of fucker, you know. Strangely enough, they didn't, as I understand it, the Jews don't have a concept of hell. I guess they kind of figured we were already there. I don't know. But anyway, eye for an eye. Don't you think it seems fair? You know, I'm happy to do unto others as I would have done unto me. But there comes a point when we must do unto others as they have done unto you, especially scum like this. So wonderful idea. I think it's really, really entertaining, to say the least, that somebody has gone to the trouble of developing this. And I hope it is what it is. And I hope they get back to me and let me know what's going on. So anyway, let's get back to the wonderful memesies. And so good old Danny mate plays golf by himself. Let's extend that to make sure he can go nowhere. Make him unwelcome. Make him want to actually move to China where scum like that belongs. Imagine how much propaganda it took to convince women that this is oppressive. Ladies, I'll leave you to make your comments on this one, Sips. What are your thoughts? I know when I've seen this image come up, there were a lot of comments in support of it from ladies. Nothing about this looks like it is saving the environment. It looks like clearing the land and covering the environment in a corporation's products, you know. And funnily enough, I looked on X and I seen Elon was actually promoting solar as a wonderful thing and using the fact that the CCP has got a massive development of solar farms going. Like, I mean, communists have always been so caring towards the environment, haven't they? And there's such a stand-up, you know, mob to really want to think about, you know, yeah, I'm inspired by the Chinese at all times. And whenever they're doing something, I think great. You know, I mean, you only have to look at the history. There was fine China in China once upon a time. You know, the totalitarian empiric sort of regime gave us fine China. Then communism came. And now we've got cheap Chinese shit. But we'll come more to the cheap Chinese shit in time to come as we come to the world news. Actually, that will come to that. Anyway, so this one I'd like to dedicate to the knob jockey at Channel 10. You know,
Troy Thompson has plenty of support, including those from the fringe online platform called the North Queensland Freedom Network. Its podcast.
That knob jockey, who, you know, decided to, you know, take my words out of context and say that I was a conspiracy theorist because I thought trusting the science was stupid. G'day, Robin. How are you? Yeah, great leap forward was fun. So, you know, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Don't just trust the science. Trust the doctors on this one. You know, they were happy to put their names to Camel cigarettes. You know, they must have been good for you. I mean, it was authorized by a doctor. No flies on me, thanks to DDT. Whew. I want to give that a crack. Speaking of things you want to give a crack, heroin hydrochloride, compressed tablets containing, well, I can't quite read. What does it say? It's like 1/24th of a grain, 1/24th grain each of heroin hydrochloride. I think that's what it says. It's a bit blurred, but hard to say. But directions: 2 to 3 to be taken orally or by order of your physician. The Bayer Group, aren't they the mob who bought out Monsanto? Also responsible for various genetically modified products, as I understand. Let this magic mineral asbestos protect the building on your farm. Remember, trust the science. Trust the science. Don't ever question it. Just trust it. You know, I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Anyway, look, before we come to that one, I'm going to actually, no, we'll do it this way. So yeah, this is one I went through. Have a look, take your time. I'm going to have a sip and give yourself your score. Personally, I got 1 point and it was because of the last one. I've never paid with anything with a paper check. I've used paper money, but not a paper check. You could consider the paper money. I guess it's a promissory note of the similar concept. So in a roundabout sort of way, I guess I got a zero, but I never had a checkbook. So I have done every one of these. Take your time. While you're taking your time, I'll bring in the next element. Chuck in your scores, throw them in the comments. Let us know. How did you go? It's a little bit of fun for the day. Kind of helps bring up the opportunity for a segue into the next segment as we move from memes into counsel divinations. I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway. Sounds good. Sounds funny. That's the important thing. Speaking of funny, I'm sure you've read all that by now. Let's bring this one in. Here's a little segue video. So 20, Martin, you give yourself 1 point for each thing you've never done. Oh, yeah. Well, that's all right. Perfect score of 20. Yeah, me too. Gaza, 2. How old are you, Gaza? You never used the VCR, played music. Actually, yeah, give yourself 1 point for each thing you've never done, not one thing you've done. Sorry, I got that backwards myself. So actually, it's a score of 20. Done them all. Yep, cool. Good to see. 0, sorry. No, you were right, Martin. You were right. Give yourself 1 point for each thing you've never done. Oh, I fucked up. Sorry. Thank you for correcting me. 19. No checks though. Yeah, same, Belinda. That's the one I never did. So, but I'm going to consider paper money because it's a promissory note. It functions in the similar principle. Anyway, here's our next video.
CBS This Morning, sponsored by Pfizer.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch, sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning, sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
I should laugh, I know, but it is the Australian way to take the mickey out of shit that ain't too flash. It's not standing up. It's not passing the pub test, is it? When you look at when it's so well and eloquently painted out like that, it's just really hard to take any of that seriously. Oh my God, yeah. And although I do laugh, I couldn't help. As soon as I seen it, I was in tears. I was like rolling around laughing, and it was a bit Homer Simpson-y. It's funny because I don't know him, but the human compassionate element of me going, oh, poor bastards. They were conned. They thought they were doing the right thing, no doubt. Human airbags brought to you by Pfizer. Yep. That's it, mate. That's it. All right, let's share this screen. So, good old council, Townsville City Council. We need to get rid of the mongrels, that's for sure. So, let's have a look at some of the wise words. Good old Troy Thompson's in fine form at the moment. He's been dropping a few truth bombs. I can imagine these guys must be laying a few eggs. So, good old Councillor Paul Jacob, who must be absolutely stoked, being that he was the, what do you call it, deputy mayor until Anne-Marie Greeny made sure she got to be not only acting mayor, but she also got to be deputy mayor and a councillor. I mean, 3 hats. Wow, what an amazing woman. If only she could find time to get a decent haircut as a hairdresser. But anyway, that's all. Anyway, all that aside, apparently our budget is about maintaining our core services, ensuring we couldn't continue. That's why Freudian slip. and ensuring we continue to deliver for our community now and into the future. Wow, I don't think they're doing that too well. And look, at the end of the day, that's what they're supposed to be doing. What their responsibilities are is local roads, footpaths, cycleways, street signage and lighting, rubbish collection and recycling, parking, parks, sports fields. And I mean, parking is their responsibility. That's why it sucks, which actually moves into building and approving approvals and inspections. So how did they fuck it up in their town planning and their approvals as parking? Is it all ties in together? So how is it that we have a parking problem? Must be sucking at that part of your job too. Parks, sports fields and swimming pools, libraries, art galleries, museums, you get the picture. It's all here. These are the basic things that they should be doing. Yet this is what they're doing instead. They're working on state and federal initiatives, major projects and investments, $150 million into Lansdowne, $300 million into the Horton pipeline, which apparently leaks every fucking several meters or so, 30 million on the Northern Rail Yards, 30 million on NQ Spark, 3 million onto Townsville Enterprise, who I can't really see what they fucking do for that $3 million. Honestly, I think we could scrap Townsville Enterprise and not miss them at all. 150K Smart Precinct on NQ. And this mob are paying $1 rent for their friggin' buildings, but we'll look into that. Here's a savings. By scrapping all this shit, we can save $513 million. $513 million. $150,000. Wow. That's a lot of money by scrapping these things that are not anything to do with what they should be bloody dealing with. Who the hell authorized this shit? Wow. Look at the clowns. Only look at the 10 clowns. Should we be getting rid of them? Fucking oath. Did you know Townsville City Council puts partnering agreements before ratepayer essentials? Smart Precincts NQ lease of a 966 meters squared Townsville building, right in the middle, commercial value of $100,000 is paying $1. $1. Talk about a kick in the dick, ladies and gentlemen, here at in Townsville. You're paying how many thousands of dollars? Feels something to the effect of about $4,000 a year, and it's going to go up, because we've got to pay for all these useless friggin' things that nobody wants or uses. For $100,000, we can repair footpaths like this and more. Let's get rid of them. Horton Pipeline blowout, ratepayers in more pain. Thank you very much, Townsville City Council. Here's a lovely list of, serious financial concerns. TCC acquired 100% shareholding of NQ Spark in June 2023. Also in June 2023, TCC provided a loan of $300,000. Wow. So we loaned money to them, right? But received a federal grant of $32,200 in July 2023. Where'd the money go? Grant stage one, 32 million, $8 million. Here, TCC wrote off debt of $174,000 to NQ Spark. So they've received, look, NQ Spark has received millions and millions of dollars. So why did they need a loan? Why did they get a $300,000 loan a month before they received a $32 million grant? What the hell? It makes no sense. In June 2024, TCC wrote off $174,000 of that loan. Wow, I wish somebody wrote off that much off my loan. That'd solve a few problems for me. It's truth. Maybe instead of getting home loans from the bank, we should be getting loans from Townsville City Council. They just write them off. Wow. TCC debt remains at $300,000. What? Hang on. They wrote off $174,000, but the debt still remains at $300,000. So they paid for nothing. NQ Spark got a loan and have paid nothing. Wow. These are the directors, currently at the JCU, Jennifer Snowden, Anthony Mooney. Oh, there's the Mooney name again, currently TUH. I'm not sure what that is. Anthony McCabe. Oh, hang on. Isn't he the CEO of the Townsville City Council? Wow. And he's a director, no doubt getting a salary. Now, what's he doing with that salary? Interesting. So is he double dipping? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe if the Townsville Bulletin actually knew how to do their friggin' jobs, which they don't. They're too busy inventing conspiracy theories like, Troy Thompson's blackboard, for instance. Roger Noble, to current as a member of defense, and all these other people here, are also collecting money. Director fees, $99,900. Consultation fees, $624,000. By God, dismiss them. Get rid of them. This council's gone. Have a look at here it is. Here's the data sheet that proves the money. We can see it all. You can go check that out on Troy Thompson's page, and here's the proof straight away from their own paperwork. It's interesting, isn't it? More conflicts of interest. The Northern Railway developments, also another project that Townsville City Council really doesn't need to be involved in, because both of these projects we just talked about are, as stated in previously, not part of their responsibilities and are actually state or federal funded projects. They should be dealt with by state and federal people, not the Townsville City Council. We should not be paying for it. How many taxes should we pay for the same thing? Northern Railway Developments, July 2023, TCC, 100% shareholder in the company. Interesting. Are we making a profit out of this? I dare say not. August 2023, John Rossell, chairperson. May 2024, appointment of 3 new directors, Peter Wheeler, Kirsty Smith, Paul Spiro. September 2024, 2 new board members, Anthony McCabe. Oh, the CEO of Townsville City Council's dipping again. Wow, what's the $650,000 a year we pay him? Not enough, plus benefits, plus his flights back to the Gold Coast or not. Clearly, we don't give this guy enough money. He needs to jump into more board positions. Wow, that guy knows how to grease the wheels, doesn't he? And there's Neary Bolton. Perceived conflict of interest. New board member Neary Bolton, the TCC employee on salary, so she's double dipping, accepts role on NRY board with additional board fees, a role where there should be no conflict in the voting process, but there is now. The risk, a breach of the Crime and Corruption Commission Act 2001, perceived conflict of interest. Time to dismiss them. If this doesn't look dodgy, you must need some glasses, because to me it looks filthy. Right, speaking of filthy, here's a man who got chased off somebody's property with a leaf blower, but because he, being a knob, because he is. But anyway, what he reckons actually happened was he was assaulted by a leaf blower. Yeah, sure, that's all people want to assault him with. But anyway, he spent $339,346.47 on Wedgwood, where we could have fixed the sewage that's flowing into people's homes and down the streets. Yeah, I do remember that, Oliver. Still a mural out for that fella too, I believe, on Nathan Street there out front of a McDonald's. So anyway, we should probably look at what that actually is. So let's just bring that down, because what the hell did we spend $339,000 on, you might ask, because we have a right to know, don't we? I'm looking at this going, I'm not sure exactly what that meant, and here he is having a nice, little cup of tea and a bicky, you just don't want to ram it down his throat, don't you? So let's go have a look. I did bring it up. Here it is, straight off their own website. Major V, an exhibition on Wedgwood artists and industry to make Australian debut in Townsville. So they set a whole bunch of art up on the Strand. What benefit was this to the community? Ban leaf blowers. Yeah, I reckon he probably would be putting up to ban leaf blowers. I wouldn't be surprised. He probably needs counselling at Townsville City Council with the Townsville City Council money, more likely ratepayer money, to get through that horrific, traumatic event. I'm sure he's horrifically traumatized. He probably needs counselling because of my podcast too. I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, one of the world's most esteemed cultural institutions will debut an iconic collection of Wedgwood ceramics and Townsville's Perk Tucker Regional Gallery. So I never voted for this. I never even seen it. And why do I care? I mean, for all the people who put art together, it's wonderful. But I mean, if you can't sustain yourself on your art, tough shit, So, I mean, well, he says, there was a comment there about it being an expensive china. Apparently here, they just call it ceramics, Well, I've got ceramics in the cupboard, cups, bowls, mugs, You can come give me $300,000. I'll take you for a walk through my frigging kitchen and show you some ceramics. It's truth. What are we spending this frigging money on? This is nuts. By the way, dismissal of Townsville City Council. If you haven't decided to sign it yet, and I haven't inspired you yet, just hold on. You'll find some reasons. I'm dropping it into the comments for you, and it is in the description. By all means, sign the hell out of this. We're up to 1,000 signatures on the official. It is an official one, as you can see. It's on the Queensland Parliament now. Queensland Parliament has accepted it because Townsville City Council wasn't going to accept it. But there's multiple petitions getting around. I can tell you, it's more than 1,000. People have signed this. So just like to bear that in mind. But anyway, let's keep going because why is this not being reported more frequently? I don't know. It's got me stuff. But yeah, every time I see this guy's face, I feel ill. I think I need therapy myself. But, they need to make some unpalatable decisions come mid-year budget review. So buckle up, buckaroo. Very soon, they're going to be telling us exactly how much they're going to give you the shaft. And we've all been given our land evaluations. They're going to use that as an excuse to raise your rates because they're wasting money. Here's the ugly mug itself. Unpalatable is a nice way to describe it. Said by the acting mayor herself, acting emphasis. The queen of inability to answer emails unless automated responses saying, I'm too busy on holidays. We are currently, we can't give to everyone. You give to no one except your friends and fucking shit, useless stuff we don't want. We currently have exhausted all funding as it is. No shit. We just seen, what is it? How many? $500 million wasted on shit that has nothing to do with what you're supposed to be doing, you friggin' idiot. I genuinely believe we're sending the city in the right direction. What, down the sewage pipe, straight down Nathan Street and into people's homes, spilling your spew and bile everywhere, aren't you, bad dad? If you don't know why he's called Bad Dad, it's because he thought putting parking meters was a good idea because you can't be the good dad all the time. What would you know about being a good dad and how condescending that you treat ratepayers in such a fashion that you would call us children by assuming yourself as a role of father? Fuck you, mate. Fuck you. Sorry for swearing, but it's the only way I can respond to somebody who'd be so belittling. It disgusts me. Growing concerns for insolvency in the future. I wonder why. Should be growing concerns about whether you're going to have a job soon enough, because I reckon we should be really getting rid of this mob ASAP. They piss me off to no end. And if they're not pissing you off, Townsville, they should be. Pull your heads out of the stand. Look, Cowboys, maybe your favorite team, but spending all your time watching that is not stopping these clowns robbing you blind. All right, let's continue. So, I told you about the petition. Make sure you sign it. Get rid of these clueless fucks. So what else useless shit has they done? Well, it turns out Townsville Bulletin might have done some half-decent reporting. Oh, no, hang on. The rock pool needs an upgrade. Apparently, Townsville City Council asks for community feedback. Anybody else struggling to swallow that headline? To asks for community. Geez, Caitlin, wonderful. Who checks your print? Asks for community feedback on future of rock pool redevelopment. Apparently, it's an iconic part of the Strand. Personally, I've never been game enough to put my big toe in that public urinal. But anyway, they got to flush it out once a week. I don't know how much it costs to flush this entire thing out, to refill it up with salt water, flush it out into the ocean, fill it up every week, clean this thing out. They're going to upgrade it. The rock pool has been an iconic part of the Strand for almost 60 years. I've never touched it, and I reckon there's a lot. One of the first things I learned when I got here was the locals said, don't swim in it. Only idiot tourists go in it, and I'm sure they're all pissing in it because they're to clean it out every week. It's disgusting. But now it's time for an upgrade. Maybe you should drain it, turn it into a skating bowl. Anyway, because, there's a couple of scooters have been chucked in there. Those wonderful e-scooters that respond well to salt water. Yeah, that's a saltwater pool, by the way. Anyway, Townsville City Council is calling on the community to help shape a long-term vision for the northern end of the Strand. Last year, a petition surfaced calling for the council to redevelop the rock pool into a freshwater lagoon, saying it would be a safer and more enjoyable environment for fewer risks, like exploding EV freaking scooters, including deadly irriganji stings, poisonous algae blooms, and, you know, the fact that everybody pisses in it. It's not the first time a redevelopment has been proposed. The former mayor and father of the Strand redevelopment, Tony Mooney, there's that name again. We'll see. There's a man who knows how to double dip. He was double dipping into the Northern Rail Yards, or did we miss that bit? I think it might have been, again, check out Troy Thompson's page. You'll see more on that. Pushing for a wave pool or a lagoon to be built in 2019. Oh, isn't he good? You know? Anyway, there was I nearly threw up. There was also a push in the early 2000s to develop a wave pool, originally built in 1968. But anyway, we're trying to make this thing look good as usual, you know, even though they can't spell, we get their sentence structure properly. Acting Mayor Anne-Marie Greene said the council was taking a staged approach in planning for the site's future, beginning with community engagement. What the fuck would she know about a community engagement? This is a woman who made a veteran, and various other people friggin' wanted to make a veteran in a military town homeless. You know, he's got post-traumatic stress, and kick him out so that they can do God knows what on Magnetic Island. She is a piece of shit. To inform preliminary design concepts to guide funding bids. So they actually don't. This admits there's no money. They're going to have to try and get funding for this because they haven't got any. You know, like, she can't even fix the roads. Yeah, kind of like Darth Vader. Anyway, but that would suggest, oh no, you can't, no, please, no. That would suggest that his son was Luke Skywalker, and by God, no, it's more like a clone, I guess, really. But anyway, what is it? Prone to elements and can be subject to closures due to seasonal algae blooms. Like, it's just ridiculous. You know, it's an epic failure. Most locals won't use it. I won't put my big toe in it. And it's there as a tourist trap, you know, to try and make tourists sick, I guess. I don't know, but, you know, or it's a wonderful solution to getting rid of the electric scooters if you're a big fan of them, as some other people in Townsville have done by throwing them in there and potentially creating saltwater lithium ion bombs. Wonderful job. So while they're wasting money on that, here it is. It's an insult to Townsville City Councilors. Townsville City Council speak out against gutting free events. The council has been left with an egg on its face after voting to gut funding to local festivals just 48 hours before Premier Crisafulli awarded its Queensland's best event. Wow. How fucking stupid have you got to be? Talk about a political disaster for these idiots. You know, these people are absolute morons. So Townsville City Council has been left with egg on its face after voting to gut funding to a local festival just 48 hours before Premier Crisafulli awarded its Queensland's best event. India Fest Townsville President Binu Jacob and Secretary Nick Adam flew to Brisbane to accept the award directly from Premier David Crisafulli on Friday, June 6th. While the committee remains dedicated to delivering another free India Fest to everyone in August, the award was bittersweet after Townsville City Council, and I'm going to insert my own words here, kicked them in the dick and gave them a bit of a titty twister for a good measure. Recent decisions to halve the funding it would give up a large community events this year from 50,000 to 25,000. It comes as the council spent $230,000 on their Our Townsville event scheduling to run the Anderson Gardens next week. Holy shit. Our Townsville. I haven't even heard of it. Where did that $230,000 go? Like, I'm only hearing about it now. Let me guess. Did Townsville Bulletin get some of that money in advertising revenue, perhaps? Just a thought. Stable at Riverway will also see its funding slashed by half. That is a Christmas event for Christian people. Wow. Talk about a kick in the dick. Reverend Ann Harley said she found out about the funding cut through the media. Well done. Man, is there someone you don't want to shit on in Townsville City Councillors? You people are fucking morons. Well done, dickheads. All right. So retirement. So this is just another example. This is not Townsville City Council. It's just another fucking piece of shit. Retirement Living Council demands apology after claims residents feel spied on by Cairns Mayor Amy Eden. Oh my God. A peak body has demanded an apology after Cairns Mayor admitted, it's North Queensland at least, she had completed social media checks on retirement village residents against a proposed 800% rate rise. Wow. 800% rate rise on the elderly. Aren't you a stunning what a piece of shit? A peak body has demanded a public apology after the Cairns mayor admitted she had completed social media checks. It was maybe socialist media was more the approach she was thinking on retirement village residents against a proposed 800% rate rise. Why are you raising the rates that much? You mean to tell me that Cairns Council is just as incompetent as the Townsville City Council at managing its funds? The claims made by residents in response have been fiercely denied by the council and Miss Eden. Oh, okay. But apparently she made those claims. Interesting. I've done a couple of social inquiry checks online of some of the complaints, and I can see them enjoying the lagoon and all the free offerings down at the Esplanade. Oh, so you guys provide a whole bunch of free stuff and then say, oh, by the way, you got to pay for it. Here's an 800% rate rise. That's a bit underhanded. I was reading was it Rapunzel with my daughter earlier today, and it seems a bit similar to the witch who, whose garden was getting pilfered by a dickhead. It just happened to be Rapunzel's father, who was pilfering the garden. She runs up and says, "Hey," or this is the first time I've read the book, by the way. I don't know. It's an old story. I should have looked earlier. But anyway, he's pilfering the garden. The witch says, "Hey, that's my garden. If you want to take my food, you're going to have to, I want something for it." Yeah, no worries. So he takes the stuff, doesn't ask what that is. The witch comes back and steals his daughter. This is the same shit. She must be the witch in Rapunzel. Fuck me. I've just figured it all out. Astounding. There you go. The witch in Rapunzel is running Cairns. There you go. Maybe there's a doppelganger and they're running the Townsville City Council as well. A witch. Giving out free stuff, doling it out over here so we can take it away over here. Left and right wing politics all over, Socialism one side, socialism the other. As you can see, these are the poor victims. And if you look here, look at these poor things. We're not your retirement plan. Yeah, righto. I mean, it's a bit rough. These poor people have worked their guts out all their lives here in Australia just to get a kick in the dick. I don't know. It's a good question. If they were paying $1, surely you can afford 8. Anyway, so let's bring in our next element here and finish off this segment of why we should boot the council. Link is in the comments, and here's a word from the mayor that we elected, who is currently suspended and just acting as a private citizen. Here's his views on this situation with the mayors.
So just wanted to give you an update on the dismissed Townsville City Council petition that's going around. So you've probably seen this or some leaflets that are going into your letterbox at the moment around Townsville. So it's exactly as it said. We've written to the state government and asked for a dissolvement of council, which is council as the executive, on the basis of poor fiscal management, as well as internal staff culture, ethical behaviour and decisions being made by council executives, past and present. We've also asked for an audit over the last 10 years, so going back to 2015. To support it, hit the link, go to my page. You can hit the link and fill out the e-petition on the Queensland Government website, which is sponsored by the Clerk of Parliament, or you can go to change.org, and there's also a paper petition going around. That paper petition outlines what's in the petition, and you simply fill that out and sign it so we can get it off. Unlike some of the presumptions that are going out there, there's well over 1,000 signatures. There's 955, I think, on the change.org. We're over 820 now on the government e-petition, and we've got close to 3,000 signatures in total when you add all of the signatures up, which is great. Moving forward, we just want to make sure that we get this in front of government, and there's multiple layers. So we're going to deal with state politicians, federal politicians, and we're also working with senators, all of which are getting information about the council. And you'll also be shown via my page some of the briefing notes on why council should be dissolved. It's important that we push forward with this and we get a clean restart. Just going to a new election and replacing councillors does not remove the debt or the poor decisions from the past. That must be audited and investigated so we can all move forward as a city. Thank you very much for your time.
There you go, from the man himself. I notice here $800. Now, just hear me out. If $1 is 100%, 800% of $1 would be $8, wouldn't it? I don't know. Help me out. Did I get that wrong? Anyway, I'd just like to thank Laura for bringing this one to my attention. I'm not going to play it because I'll probably get some copyright strike because, you know, YouTube loves that shit. But apparently this is a really good song. I had to listen to it. It's funny as all hell, if not actually devastatingly sad because it's so true. I'm going to drop this in the comments for you guys. Have a listen. Mary Cutter, Devil's Money. Oh, sorry. The Devil Wore a Lab Coat. Devil's Money is the one there. It popped up after I watched it. The Devil Wore a Lab Coat. You know, so yeah, check that out. The lyric video is actually pretty clever. I like the way they've done this, you know, where they come through here and drop it in as news articles. I might use that one day. Thanks for the idea. Brilliant idea, having the letters appear as a news article. It's pretty good. But anyway, check that out if you're interested. Nice little bit of country music. It's not my usual flavor of heavy metal, but anyway. So let's make sure I get this in order, because I have to flip between a few different mediums here to make this happen. So we're going to start by bringing that video in, actually. So let's stop sharing that. Yeah, oh, wrong button again. Sorry, it gets a bit tricky because there's a few different mediums I'm going to bring in, and it doesn't all work as well as I'd like to think. But anyway, so we're going to start here with an elbow. An elbow. He's done a great job, as usual. Oh, what? Okay, apparently we're not going to do it because that format, for some reason, didn't give audio. Anyway, $4 billion worth of military helicopters destroyed, you know, is the basic story there. As I understand it, they decided to blame the helicopters, but it turns out now, after 2 years of a bunch of investigations have been done, turned out it was pilot error. So as we are in a military town, I'm sure they're wonderfully stoked to know that $4 billion worth of helicopters was needlessly destroyed and for troop deployment and whatnot. So rather essential piece of military hardware. But yeah, Elbow pissed that money away. Thank you very much, Elbow. Great job. You know, always there to look after the people because, you know, that's what he does. You know, he's there to look after us. That is just how Elbow rolls. He's top bloke, as you know, as everybody knows. He's so good. Anyway, so here's some more Elbow work. Honourable Albanese Parliament. You know, let's have a look. Expenditure report for January to March. So in 3 months, he's racked up $1 million. It's like, you need what's his face from Austin Powers, you know, Primeval or whatever his name was. I can't think of his name. Somebody help. Dr. Evil to pop up at this point and go $1 million in 3 months. Well done, mate. Well done. What an impressive regime he's got going there, you know. So at this rate, he's going to have spent $4 million on expenses. Wow, boy, he knows how to spend money when it's not his. Typical socialist. Economy barely growing as investment falters, says the Financial Review. Yep, well done, mate. That's all right. He's got his $1 million every 3 months to go jet setting around the world. Good old Elbow, always there to lend a hand to the poor, downtrodden, hard-working Australian. Top bloke, real top bloke. So anyway, actually that's, yeah, okay, cool. Move from studio, buggy you. You're not working. All right, next part. I'll get better at this. There's a better way to do this, I'm sure. I'll figure it out. Anyway, so good. Some more of Elbow's fine work. Anti-farming labour, land blasted. After report emerges, Albanese government is reviewing US beef ban for tariff negotiations. Labor has been accused of being one of the most anti-farming governments after a report emerged. It was reviewing its US beef ban for tariff negotiations. Labor has been attacked as one of the most anti-farming governments and urged not to use Australia's $11.3 billion beef export industry as a pawn or to strike a compromise deal with the United States to limit the ramification of Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs. Surely there's something better he can do, like stop being a dictator. But anyway, government officials reportedly told the Sydney Morning Herald that Australia could alter its biosecurity laws to allow US beef exports without risks to a local industry in a move to appease Trump as he wages his trade war. Look out. So Albo is bending over. Trump has got him and has given him a rough servant, apparently. Australia banned US beef in 2003 after a mad cow disease outbreak before undoing this in 2019 when the outbreak subsided. Look, until that Maha movement has really taken control of the food industry. And I don't know if you haven't watched Food Inc. and see how the Americans treat their animals, by God, you should. It's absolutely disgraceful. It reminded me of the movie June, like the old one. The new one sucks. But anyway, with the heart plugs, instead they got stomach plugs, and they're reaching into this stuff because they're feeding them grain and they're living in filth and muck. It's disgusting. Anyway, cattle raised in Mexico and Canada but slaughtered in the US is still banned. However, this could change. Wow. Bad. And you see what's happening in Canada and Mexico, wonderful places. National Senate leader Bridget McKenzie told Sky News on Friday that the beef industry needs to be protected. No shit, our friggin' farmers are already in enough trouble without this knob jockey completely ruining shit. These people are idiots. So anyway, we've got to keep moving. We've got a lot to get through. Some more of Albo's fine work. PVO, imagine if you had to get your property valued each year and then pay tax on how much the value went up. These Aussies are about to get hit with that scenario every year. Wow. So the unrealized capital gains tax is moving in on people's investment properties. It is moving in on farms. And farms is the big killer here. This is the one that's the real problem because you know what? Farms are worth a bit of money. Not to mention the massive property taxes they're getting hit with in Labor-driven Victoria, but also here in Queensland, there's some serious problems with the councils gouging farmland and horrific raises. We've covered this a few times on this network, but this situation is not getting any better. And I've said for a long time, the New World Order target is to attack our food. That's for sure. Making sure we are no longer sustainable in our own right in any way, shape, or form. This is absolutely ridiculous. It needs to end. I actually have a video to accompany this disgusting chain of events right here from the farmers themselves. Let's hear what they have to say about this shit.
An average of 21,000 head of cattle and over 104,000 sheep are processed in Australia's system every single day because of farmers.
In Australia, so many hard-working families raise the livestock and grow the produce to fill your supermarket shelves with some of the world's best food.
But the biggest threat isn't weather or markets, it's our own government.
A tax on unrealised capital gains could hit farming families who have based their entire lives around their family farm for generations.
We don't have an inheritance tax in Australia yet, but if it gets introduced, handing the farm to the next generation could cost them everything.
This isn't just tax reform, this is a quiet shift in who controls how food is grown, raised and accessed.
We are battling droughts in one region and floods in another, and now they're piling taxes on top of us.
And if you think this doesn't affect you, then check the price of your next steak or grocery bill.
We are not just part of the system.
We keep the system running
every day
for every Australian.
And we're standing together to protect it.
No farmers.
No food.
Says it all, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? It says it all. This isn't like they've destroyed our industries, they've destroyed our businesses, they've destroyed our cities, and now they're coming for the food on your plate. Is there nothing left that these people will not take? The biggest threat to the human race for the last 100+ years has been people's own governments. This is statistically true based on what the communists have done. The biggest death toll to their own people, brought to you by communism, by socialist workers' parties, such as the Labour government, for example, such as the USSR, which is another socialist workers' party, as pointed out in the chart behind the leftist side of things. The right-hand side, the right wing, the Nazis, another socialist workers' party. There's very little difference. You can draw a line right through this. I think the funny thing is our Labour Party actually emulates both these elements very well. It's hard to, I can't figure out sometimes whether they're Nazis or whether they're socialist commies. It's hard to tell. I think they're so accommodating. They just include everyone, you know. It's just the way they roll. It makes the mind boggle. Some more of wonderful Labor's work. Labor eyed unrealized gain tax exemption for farms and small businesses and said no. I don't think we really need to read much more of this. They've looked at it. They've gone, you know what? Fuck that. The only exemptions we're going to make is for ourselves. Yeah, good old commies. Typical. Like I said, can't figure out are they Nazis or or communist Russia? I'm not sure. I can't tell the difference. I think they're both. I think they're an amalgamation between both concepts. Really, it's just a socialist workers' party down to brass tacks here. You know, willing to murder and massacre its own people. You know, starving them out was another tactic of Stalin's. You know, it looks like Labor's added it to doing it to their own people just as Stalin did. The copper string, Queensland Treasurer set to commit additional $1.4 billion. Now, this is an interesting one because this is where that $300,000 that we pump in every year into Townsville Enterprise comes into play, because they've pushed for this copper string friggin' thing. And what's it all really about? Well, at the fundamental, it's a transmission line set to be built between Townsville and Mount Isa, would connect Northwest Minerals Province and renewable energy projects. This is what it's really about. Fucking renewable energy bullshit. 1.4 billion, additional 1.4 billion is already had blown out in the last 12 from 5 billion to 13 billion. They're going to chuck another 1.4 billion. How many more billions are you going to shove into this shit? Same shit, different shovel. Totally agree, Sam. This is ridiculous. Just build a coal-fired power plant out there. It would be a lot cheaper. Like, this is nuts. I mean, we're talking about, like, I think it's about an 800-kilometer stretch from Townsville to these mining places out in Mount Isa. It might even be 900. It's a long way. It's not a short distance, ladies and gentlemen. But billions and billions of dollars, and they're going to keep pumping it in there. You know, it's a bit sad given the fact that, you know, we elected, the Chrysler government to stop ridiculous waste, you know, but apparently, well, we've wasted so much money. Why not continuously waste more money? Well done. But actually, there was supposed to be something else that goes along with this before we go to that. Hang on a second. I'm going to bounce backwards and forwards to a few things. Yeah, a video. Cool. Let me bring the video in. But here's Chrysler himself. What's he got to say about these things?
The last 12 months, Queensland's power prices went up by 19.9%. Now, that's 3 times the national average. Now, there is one thing that Queensland has that the other states don't, and that is the youngest fleet of coal-fired power stations, and they haven't operated at their capacity for the better part of 3 years. Now, our focus was on, and we said to the Queensland population before the election, that we will get those plants operating to drive down those power prices. And then we've spoken about renewable energy, and we've spoken about pumped hydro as a way of storage. So we've put forward that plan. Now, in terms of the argument about nuclear, that'll be something that Canberra can debate, and that'll be something that will happen as part of the federal election campaign. I'm asking people to do it in the right way. We saw some things during the Queensland campaign, and to the credit of the voters in Queensland, they saw through it. But no one wins when politics gets reduced to childish barbs. No one wins when there's scare campaigns. So let's debate that on facts, and we look forward to playing our role in making sure that energy for Queensland is affordable, reliable and sustainable.
Well, I hope you stick to your guns on that one, man, because you spent a 1.4 billion here, you know, on a dud. On yet another dud. Is it a case of, well, we've spent that much money, we may as well finish it off with another 1.4 billion to continue this ridiculous project? Look, I mean, this is, you know, the fine work of the Labor government we've done here, and, you know, Liberals going to add their fucking weight to it, you know, madness, utter madness. Anyway, so a little bit more positive note. The Noticer. has released this wonderful piece of journalism here. Fed up Tasmanians destroy homosexual pride flags. Good riddance. But I don't know. It's not just homosexual. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, a bit of fudge packing in the privacy of your own home. Go for your life. I really don't care if you're a fecophiliac. But at the end of the day, you know, what really is disturbing about this is the brutality towards children, you know, and the transgender desire to harm children is what pisses me off. Apparently, masked vigilantes have torn down almost every pride flag in Launceston, Tasmania, just hours after they were erected in the state's erected. Erected. Oh, I've got to. It's a perfect opportunity.
Please come out. Please.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect opportunity. He said erected. Got to be some Beavis and Butthead fans out there, surely. The City of Launceston Council puts up these flags. See, this is another city, the council, wasting people's money on shit they don't want, pushing political filth down people's throats, which promote homosexuality and radical gender ideology. The radical gender ideology is what concerns me the most. Like I said, you want to play with poo, go for your life, you know. But just do it in the privacy of your own home and keep it away from the children. That results in the mutilation of children. Exactly. On flagpoles in Brisbane Street Mall for Pride Month at 2 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon. But the next morning, they had been ripped down. So, you know, I think it says a lot. The people have had a gut full of this shit. And look, you can see they even had cameras there and they didn't give a shit. Stuff ya. The world has had enough of the LGABCs and their pedophile protecting mob. You know, this is just sexual perversion straight out. It's all it is as far as I'm concerned. Get rid of the lot. We don't want our tax money being wasted on this shit. If these sexually perverted lunatics want to push their own agenda, pull out their own friggin' wallets. Stop using the purse strings of the ratepayer and the taxpayer, the hardworking Australians who are not trying to cause harm to children. Anyway, geologists have revealed the world's biggest iron deposit worth $6 trillion set to impact the global economy, apparently. In a remote part of Western Australia, if you're still watching, you might want to dive a little bit deeper into this one, Robin. This is probably more up your alley, since it's your end of the world. But I thought it was an interesting one to have a look at. What's going to happen here is anybody's guess. Apparently, it being so big, it could have all sorts of ramifications. Might even be worth something investing in. You know, might have to look into who owns this particular stretch and where you can invest a couple of bucks in on the share market. Because if this is approved, boom, watch those shares go through the roof. That's just a theory. I'm only new to these things. I don't know. Don't take it as gospel advice. I'm not giving you advice. It's just a thought that occurred to me. Anyway, you know, and you can use that Stake app to figure out about those things anyway. You know, so this article gets into it, you know, quite extensively. Look at all the bits and pieces of metal and shit. Shifting the global mining landscape. Australia already holds a dominant position in the global iron market, but this discovery reinforces its influence. The sheer scale of the deposit will likely affect iron ore prices worldwide and alter the economic and strategic relationships between countries reliant on iron imports. So if we weren't already a target for the CCP to be taken over, we are now. Beyond economic impacts, the deposit challenges long-standing assumptions about Earth's geological development. That is a key element here, you know, very key element here. It challenges long-standing assumptions. I'd like to put that in big capital letters, that word right here, assumptions. Trust the science, ladies and gentlemen, about Earth's geological development. As scientists continue to study the region, they hope to uncover more about the process that shaped our planet's surface and its minerals. Do you mean the science isn't settled? Shock, horror, disgust. Do you mean to tell me that we're not running out of shit like they keep telling us? With this discovery, the boundaries of what is known about mineral formation are expanding, opening the door to further exploration and possibly reveal other vast deposits hidden in similar geological settings around the world. Now, there is a lot more to this article, and you know, I think people should have a quick read of it if you're interested. I will chuck it in the comments because I'm sure Robin might want to look into this a little bit more. So I'll throw it in there for you. and you can have a look. I think there was a mention of something when I read it the other day. It's been a few days since I read it, and since then I've pumped through that much information. My head is swimming a little bit. Yeah, here it is. The size and the quality of the deposit could influence international iron prices and reshape trade relations, particularly between Australia and major iron consumers such as China. So that reinforces what I was saying earlier. Very important to be considering this as the Albanese government continues to import Chinese like they're going out of fashion, you know. And look, let's face it, they've got a war strategy of taking over things without actually firing a shot because they want to preserve the infrastructure. They don't want to come in here and blow us up. They'd rather just take it over. And let's face it, Australians are proving to be quite just as subservient as the Chinese people have been. You know, I mean, the Chinese people have accepted communism very well. Will Australians be just as lax and easily enslaved? Time will tell, I guess. They could just outvote us as they infect and infest our society. Anyway, some more. Craig Kelly put this one in here. During the election campaign, Albanese posted about the biggest ever housing build is under construction. However, ABS data released after the election shows that the number of new dwellings approved in April 2025 was falling and was lower than April 2010. Albanese lied and deceived Australians to get elected again. Is anyone actually surprised? Maybe the fucking idiots who keep voting for him, perhaps. But yeah, no, it doesn't work. So yeah, as you can see, back in 2010, I mean, things fell, you know, up and down, you know. Amazingly, things got really well built around this period, you know, of 2020 and 2021. You know, weren't we all in lockdown around there? How did so much shit get built? That's interesting, isn't it? You know, but since we've been coming out of lockdowns, down and down and down and down, and you know, hang on, isn't that when Labor took over? I don't know. Anybody help me out here? Is that what happened? Labor and their wonderful trade unions have done such a great job. I thought these people were supposed to be about construction. Interesting. Fascinating stuff. Good old Elbow at it again. Dr. barred from exposing transgender madness at Queensland Children's Hospital. Now, I thought our illustrious Chris Foley was supposed to be stepping in to stop this kind of shit, but apparently not. A woke Queensland hospital has told a child psychiatrist she cannot return to work after she spoke out about her transgender activist colleagues and their obsession with radical gender ideology. Dr. Gillian Spencer, who was previously stood down from Queensland's Children's Hospital for expressing a conscientious objection, so you're not allowed to have your own conscience, to gender affirming care, especially not concerning things that make so much money for hospitals, has now received a letter telling her she was no longer welcome in any workplace, the Courier Mail reported. What did they say about it? Curious. Bars doctor over trans rights claims. Wonder, did they say the same nice things? A child has been told she can't return to work, accusing colleagues of becoming transgender activists and using mentally ill children in a trans pride promotion. Well, they seem to be actually reporting somewhat well for a fucking left-wing biased media. The hospital's director of clinical services wrote Dr. Gillian Spencer this week, telling an outspoken psychiatrist it was not appropriate for her to return to any workplace. A confidential letter obtained by the Courier Mail is revealed. It's amazing how much confidential letters end up in the hands of the mainstream media. It fucking astounds me how that happens. You know, it happens here in Townsville all the time too. Murdoch must pay these people a lot of money, maybe. And it comes after Dr. Spencer told a forum at New South Wales Parliament House that she was reprimanded and later suspended for speaking out against transgender activism she said was inappropriate. I enjoyed pulling down the transgender pride flags in the mental health waiting room. Well done. You know what I mean? If they're in the mental health waiting room, is it because they wanted to wave that flag? I don't know. Maybe that's just my view on the situation. Walking past these damn trans pride flags every day and talking to people wearing rainbow lanyards and pronoun badges was dispiriting. Listening to clinicians carefully using a child's preferred pronouns when discussing cases with me generated disconnection from my workmates. Yeah, I totally feel your pain, love. Like all these idiots, you know, doing this shit. It's fucking nuts. Anyway, I've reached out to her. You know, she whether she comes back to me or not, we'll find out. So no. Now we're moving into something that's a little less flavoursome. It's not exactly the kind of thing I'd normally like to talk about, but it's gonna move into a specific segue. So this is where it starts. We've got this wonderful bloke. You can see he's a real happy chappy here, and he's bashing fuck out of people. Now, there is a video. I don't know. Do you want to actually see it? Because I do have it here of this charming fella bashing the hell out of some poor bloke. You know, an African thug who bashed two strangers the day he was let out of a Victorian psych ward. So I don't know what they did. Did he wave a transgender flag and now all of a sudden he's allowed out to go and bash people? Is that okay? Is that how it worked? While out on bail for assault and robbery, has been ordered to undergo a mental health assessment. What again? Before he is sentenced. What the fuck? I mean, they let him out. The mental health mob let him out of a psych ward. Why are we going through mental health assessment again? This is utterly... I think the magistrate might need some fucking mental health assessment personally. Fuck me. You know, Bendigo Magistrates Court. Now, this is funny. I remember doing a gig back in Bendigo long time ago in a galaxy far away, you know, before Afghanistan had been established. And there was a problem then. And the pub owner, you know, who obviously works in the nightlife, was saying the biggest problem was there's 2 or 3 coppers getting around the town of a night time to actually control the problem of crime. And this is going back straight 10, 15 years, somewhere in that vicinity, you know. And but there was about 200 coppers out in the road handing out fines every friggin' day. You know, we seem to have the same problem in all regional towns, I've noticed, because I've been on police ride-alongs here in Townsville and actually noticed the same friggin' thing. 3 or 4 cars at nighttime when all the crime's happening, hundreds of the bastards running around all day handing out fines to little old ladies. This is, what the fuck is wrong with these people? I don't see this as a problem that can't be solved if you put coppers where they're supposed to friggin' be, where the crime is. I'm sorry, 3K's over the limit's not a friggin' crime, but it's a wonderful money-making campaign, isn't it? Sips, ladies and gentlemen. Throat's getting dry. So anyway, this moves on to quite a bit of shit because it's a huge can of worms, you know. And I'm not saying it's a race thing. I'm saying it's a cultural thing, and especially a problem when you import so many people from nations that have not been rehabilitated into a society that has a higher living standard, let's say, you know, a different cultural view on how things should be done. So, you know, I don't know. Did people actually say they wanted to watch it? No, it infuriates me. Yeah. Apparently, Brad's in Egypt at the moment. Wow, what's it like over there, man? You know, I've heard a lot of conflicting views, you know, particularly with people with machine guns, you know, bribing people, you know, and, you know, trying to get money out of them so they can go and look at pyramids and things. Just want to get your feedback on that one if you can, Brad. That'd be wonderful. Maybe shoot me an email with a bit in depth. Like, mate, maybe you want to come on the podcast and tell us about your experiences live from Egypt at some stage, man. Just drop us a line, mate. So anyway, this is an interesting article because, you know, there's a lot of shit going on regarding these things. So, you know, migrant parents asks courts to send the kids back to Africa to separate them from criminal friends. Interesting. There's also this video, you know, regarding the same sort of...
A man carrying a meat cleaver at Northland Shopping Centre. They were called to the scene around 9 this morning. The 28-year-old was found in the car park and searched, officers seizing his weapon. It comes just a week and a half after crowds were forced to flee machete-wielding gangs at Northland, fast-tracking the state's sales crackdown.
So, obviously, banning machetes didn't really work. There is no money in crime. There is if you're the criminal, apparently. So I've heard. But they want apparently the parents want to send the kids back to Africa. Any objections? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Migrant parents, the migrant parents themselves of some of Melbourne's worst teenage criminals are so desperate to get their kids away from the toxic influence of the city's youth crime gangs. Wow. The parents themselves who have come here for a better life are absolutely astounded at how toxic the fucking crime gang situation is that has manifested under Labor's rule. Well done. Wow. It mystifies me. I'm flabbergasted, you know. I mean, because this signifies that just because they've come from another land doesn't mean that they're all criminals, right? I want to make that clear, you know. But some people have obviously associated themselves with yo homie gangster gangs, you know, and decided that they're gonna we're the downtrodden black people and we've got to take out our vengeance on white people, perhaps, or are they having a go at each other as they try to take gangland control over things? You know, this is nuts. Excuse me. This week alone, a suburban children's court alone dealt with 2 cases of desperate families wanting court approval to send their sons back to their home countries. Now, so they obviously need the court approval. Just tell me they don't want us to pay for it too. You brought them here, you send them home. I mean, maybe Elbow can pull out some of his own, however, hundred thousands of dollars he takes from the taxpayer, and he can afford to spend it back. Hang on. Penny Wong, she's interested in dealing with, you know, multicultural stuff and international developments and whatnot. I believe it's her job. Maybe she can afford to pay for it. Don't make us taxpayers pay for it. We're already paid for you, useless lot who brought the problem. My God. Well, you know, it's good to see that at least the parents are trying to take some sort of responsibility and get their kids out of this shit. You know, it'd be great if the government took some responsibility and dealt with the frigging crime. Wouldn't that be nice? Asian crime gang allegedly building drug labs in Sydney apartments. Now, I watched Box Hill get overrun back when I was a kid. And how did they do it? By getting all the kids hooked on heroin. Apparently, they're trying the same thing in Sydney. Where did they get the idea from? Wow, for all you Victorians, if you want to go to Ararat, you will find there is a Chinese museum there. Then that Chinese museum, they'll tell you the history of the Opium Wars. Or you could just look it up. Check it out. You might find the British actually gave them the fucking idea. And they're returning the favor some 100, 200 years. I can't remember the exact dates on this one. It might even be further back because it goes back to the silk trade. My numbers are probably completely wrong. But anyway, the point is still true. You know, here they're brewing up MDMA, $150,000. And these people are just cooking this shit up. Wonderful. So this is some more of the wonderful work that they've done by bringing in people without checking who they are. You know, this is insane immigration over the top. And look, it just leads to more crime. These people do not give a shit. Indian alleged mastermind of Canada-linked drug ring arrested in Sydney. An Indian man who is allegedly the mastermind behind a massive drug and illegal tobacco importation. So this is another one of these scenarios that's developed because of the government and their excessive amount of controlling this tobacco scenario in order to reap shitloads of taxes to pay for bringing in more migrants, I guess, for bringing in more benefits for people who do fuck all for our society but make it worse. Now, there's nothing in the article to suggest this, but I might even theorize it started off as an illegal tobacco importation. We're getting so rich from doing that. We may as well move into drugs as well. I mean, that's how the mafia work. They started off with, you know, dealing with the prohibition scenario, similar to our tobacco bullshit, you know, with alcohol back in the 30s. And then once that supply stopped, it moved to drugs. All because the government's trying to tell you what you can and can't do. Doesn't seem to work out very well. But, you know, it's an international crime ring. You know, they're bringing it in from overseas. It's all happening. It's all happening, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a whole family. You know, the 2 men are related by marriage. Now, I don't know if it's just, I'm sure they're not implying some rainbow flags are being flown in this scenario, but, you know, they're interconnected, hiding in cement bags, nonetheless, you know, cunning. So anyway, I believe it was cocaine and they were bringing it in from some other place. Was it Canada? Yeah, Canada. Imported from Canada. So, you know, methamphetamine from Canada. So, you know, obviously the woke government over there is doing a good job on it all as well. Isn't it amazing how they keep telling us how, they're helping society? And then these are all UN-driven initiatives, by the way, too. The UN's the one who's really allowed all this shit to fucking transpire with their ridiculous policies and their woke ideologies. And look at what it's done for us, It's done wonders, and it's through all of Western society, Instead of trying to have a competition who can be the most woke fuckwit, why don't we have a competition for who can be the safest society, who can actually have the nicest society where people actually say hello and actually enjoy their lives and don't, we don't walk into a store and go, oh my God, this is just, this guy hates his job. Anyway, now I'm not promoting the nationalist ideal here of what this guy, and the whole, dressing in black and being a Nazi, because as you probably imagine, I'm not a fan of this idea either. Socialism. But what is interesting here is the police have been accused of trying to impede nationalist activist Thomas Sweller's political activities after his trial for allegedly loitering during an Australian Day march was delayed again. Now, why are they delaying his case? So Mr. Sewell, the leader of the political organisation White Australia, appeared in Adelaide Magistrates Court for his third pre-trial conference by phone on Thursday after last week having a separate charge of displaying a Nazi symbol dropped. I thought that was a real crime thanks to the Labor government, but apparently they dropped it. But anyway, the Victorian father of two was among 17 men charged after a National Socialist network. There's that lovely word again. Like, shouldn't the Labor Party be embracing them? Come on, they've got so many things that are in common here. The activist brand of White Australia marched through the South Australian capital on January 26, waving Australian flags and singing Waltz Sing Matilda. What a horrible thing to do. And spent 3 days in solitary confinement on remand. Wow, 3 days in solitary confinement for waving flags and singing Waltz Sing Matilda. What a pack of arseholes. You can figure out who I'm talking about and whether I was being facetious or sarcastic. Anyway, the vast majority have had their charges dropped. Wow. Including Western Australian man Stephen Wells, 56, who was locked up for almost 4 months while prosecutors repeatedly had his case adjourned and magistrates refused to alter his bail conditions. Now, isn't this interesting? These guys walk down, protest, and say, hey, we love our country. We've had enough of this shit. Now, one might assume that the insane amount of migration that has led to insane amount of migrant crime, as displayed in the previous articles, and obviously all over mainstream media, this is where I got this shit from in the first place, might have actually created this problem. It's created this white nationalist construct leading us to a Nazi-style fucking socialist regime. I mean, at the end of the day, the UN doesn't really give a fuck which way you go. They don't care if you're going to be a white socialist Nazi-style right-wing or whether you're going to be a lunatic, woke, transgender fucking lunatic. So long as you go along with their socialist agendas, they don't give a shit which side you pick. So I'm not in support of either idea. But what I'm saying is that isn't it obvious that a counter argument to the leftist retardation is going to manifest? But isn't it interesting the disproportionate method in which these people are being treated? The white guys are being punished horrifically with bullshit legal warfare here. The guy's locked up for 4 months. And the prosecutors repeatedly had his case adjourned and magistrates refused to alter his bail conditions. I mean, if you go into this further, their bail conditions was that they weren't allowed to associate with each other as well, as it states further in here. We come back to our earlier point here. That's right. No, not that one. Not that one. It's there. Yeah, cool. All right. Bashed 2 strangers a day, was let out of a psych ward. And again, they're not locking him up. Again, they're checking him to see if he's got mental illnesses. This guy's getting the fucking red carpet rolled out for him. Well, these mob are still being locked up and treated like shit. How? I mean, you can't help but feel, is the system actually trying to make white people a pack of racists and turn them into neo-Nazis? Is that the objective here? Because the disproportionate method in which these laws are being applied would suggest that that's what's happening. I don't see any scenario here where these people were checked for mental health issues. It's very fascinating, isn't it? I just wanted to point this one out because, you might be thinking Notice is this horrible friggin', nasty place, but it's actually got some interesting articles. Irish identity, demographics, religion, and conflict. And I looked at that build and I thought, wow, isn't that amazing? A bit of cultural heritage to these people, and it's quite an extensive article. Gets into some really cool stuff, worth a read, but not really what I'm trying to get into the point of at the moment. What we are going to go for now, though, is I think there's a video that goes along with this. Give me a second. So we've got what Chris Foley's been saying. So obviously they're pushing to deal with the youth crime here in Queensland, whereas the Labor government down south and various other places just seem to want to fan the flames of dissent. This is what Chris Foley's been saying here.
To the United Nations, you don't control me, and I don't answer to you. I answer to Queenslanders. Answer to a whole heap of those people back there who've had their lives turned apart. And I say to the United Nations, we make laws to deal with one of the biggest issues this state has ever faced. And it's a generation of repeat hardcore young offenders who were created by weaker laws. So I say to the United Nations, you focus on the things you control, and I'll look after the things that I control. And I'm accountable to Queenslanders, not to the United Nations.
Good on him. He's going to solve the problem, But the question is, why is the United Nations interfering there? They're not interfering in the fact that there's these huge crime problems and the fact that there's machete-wielding bandits, and now they've moved into, other forms of weaponry because, you get rid of the machetes. Well, that was a solution. They'll just want another fucking weapon, you dickheads. It's not about the weapon. It's about the mentality of the people and the fact they're not actually getting sorted out. This is the real problem. Where's the UN on that? Where's the UN on your human rights to walk down the street and not be attacked by a machete-wielding bandit who's been imported from a country who doesn't give a shit about you and has been taught that white people are evil because of the woke ideologies that are being fucking spilled by these leftist fucking filth? Sorry, I swore. I better wash my mouth out with a beer sips. Yeah, that might be a new way of dealing with this. Don't know if it's going to help or not. Anyway, I digress. But what I found interesting was, I got, an email here from Nation First, good old George Christensen, and he got this thing about civil war, and it's just something that's keep popping in my head lately that I can't help but feel that this is where it's heading. I'm not saying it should. I'm not saying, hey, let's go arm ourselves and, start shooting people or anything to that effect at all. Under no circumstances am I going out in a violent homicidal or suicidal rage, for that matter, just in case there's a need for a health check. No, I'm fine. I'm just looking at what's being presented to me. And, I couldn't help but notice that he starts off with this facetious story, or perhaps, crystal ball reality check. I've got my crystal ball here, and sometimes I'll look into it, and I was just happened to be seeing the same sort of thing, and it starts off with this story about how everything's, gone south, in a dystopian world. The quick read scenario of it is the West, so Western civilization cities are becoming feral with collapsing trust, fractured policing, because they're not allowed to do their jobs when, unless they're handing out fines, raising militias, and a population split into hostile tribal enclaves. I wonder why, because, this insane amount of multiculturalism isn't allowing integration. It's allowing new hubs to turn up. It's like where Box Hill has become China Part 2, and it's actually a Chinese belt that's swept right through Victoria, and I'm sure everybody who lives in that area knows all about it. And it's not just the Chinese, it's various other populations. They move into big clumps and they just turn it into the shithole that they come from. It's fucking astounding. This is not integration. This is not multiculturalism. It's multiple cultures creating little fucking tribes all over the place, and it's going to lead to war, because anybody who's done their history will see that's what happens, And the only way this gets resolved is when tribes come together and the larger tribe takes out the smaller tribes, and then they become nations again. That's the history of the situation, as stated in that book, whose name I always forget about. You know the one I'm talking about, because I mentioned it every week and forget the name nonetheless. Anyway, the Civil War theory combined with escalating sabotage, migrant crime data, and elite denial. And that's the thing. They're denying the fact this is happening, even though it's plain for anybody with eyes to see, paints a credible picture for looming collapse. Modern urban life depends on fragile, undefended infrastructure. Betts shows how easily this can be exploited to shatter national cohesion. And I believe this is the intent. And anybody with half a brain and an ability to use a crystal ball such as I have over here can see that. Cultural erasure, mass displacement, and nuclear insecurity are not future risks. They're present dangers as the old order unravels. The failure of multiculturalism, just as I stated, economic decay, thanks to the Labor government, and a growing, Liberal government have been just as equally involved in that. Let's not beat around the bush. They've both ruined the country. And a growing expectation, expectation gap driving Western societies to the brink of revolution. Civil war comes to our streets. These aren't the scenes from the post-apocalyptic film. They're grim pulp novel snapshots of what David Betts, professor of war in the modern world at King's College London, clearly somebody who might know what he's talking about, apparently, because he's an expert and he's gone to special schools to think. I mean, I just think for myself. I haven't been given the credits of a special school, so we better talk to him instead. Now warns could be our future in a new essay just published in Military Strategy magazine. I'll be looking into that a little bit further. I only just found this morning. This is not Betts' first warning. In 2023, he released another largely overlooked essay titled "Civil War Comes to the West." In that essay, he called out the hubris of European elites likening Western civilization to a garden surrounded by a global jungle, and argued that view is dangerously false. So it goes into quite a bit here, but the important, I think you get the idea here. What's really interesting, migrant crime, fuel on the fire. If proof was needed of Ben's prediction, it came January 2025 when the Center of Migration Control released its first full national migrant crime report. The findings were volcanic. Migrants make up 9% of the population, but accounted for 16.1% of all arrests in 2024. Their arrest rate, 24 per 1,000, doubled that of British-born citizens, 12. So there's obviously we're talking about states of England as the beginning of this story, which I just skipped over, did state. Sexual offences, 165 to 48 per 100,000, a 3.4 times higher rate. Over 9,000 migrant sex offence arrests in 10 months. This should be a great concern to all the women. If the transgenders in the bathroom weren't bad enough, you got to deal with this shit too. Oh, I tell you what, it makes me blood boil. 26% of the total. In the city of London, migrants make up 67% of sex crime arrests. 67%. Afghans are 22 times more likely. Eritreans, I'm not even sure what that is, to be honest. I'm going to have to look that up. Albanians, 30 times more likely to be convicted of sex crimes. Overall, migrants are 71% more likely than Brits to be convicted. Wow. All this work for, women's rights and protecting women and, trying to bring equality just for this shit. Come on, ladies. Surely you're pissed off, Most overrepresented groups: Albanians, Afghans, Iraqis, Somalians, Algerians. What are the religions of these groups again? Just out of curiosity, any takers on that one? 48 nationalities had higher arrest rates than the native population. This isn't hate; it's statistical truth. It's what ordinary people see, but elites suppress. I mean, it's quite a lot into it, but these are the basic facts, and this is what I wanted to get to, and end this particular segment with, because it's just absolutely mind-blowing. We are at a point where we have to say something now. You can't just go, I don't want to sound racist. I'm not racist. I think I'm pretty well established that. I've got friends of all sorts of nationalities and whatnot, because a good person is a good person. I don't give a shit where you come from or who you are, as long as you're here to be Australian and be a decent person. If you're going to be a cunt, be a good cunt, as the t-shirt points out, right? Sips. My crystal ball says we're in for a lot of shit, and I'm not into fecophilia like the rainbow flag people. So let's have a look. Here's the way we're going to segue into the next transition. Not that kind of weirdo transition.
Has been a heroine, a hero for me for so many years. I've admired her from afar, and this is the first time I've had the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation, because she's written a book called A Different Kind of Power.
Dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth.
And I love that you call it that, because the different kind of power is kindness. Absolutely.
You basically said this is going to be like, well, it's almost like, you probably don't see it like this, the two different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, you have all these rights. If you are vaccinated...
That is what it is. So, yep. It's all those things that you think are weaknesses or are taught are weaknesses. Empathy, sensitivity, self-doubt and humility. And when you see those messages, remember that unless you hear it from us, it is not the truth. They're powerful.
What I admire is that you're a prime minister and you made a decision that I am going to have kindness as a principle for my administration.
Two different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, you have all these rights. If you are vaccinated...
That is what it is. So, yep.
So did you have a meeting with everybody? Did you have a kindness gathering, a kindness meeting?
Do you know, we'd spent a lot of time looking at what was, happening in New Zealand, and it's not just about what you do when you're in government, it's about the way you do it. People who are vaccinated will still get COVID-19. It just means that they won't get sick and they won't die. And I felt we'd lost that humanity, that we were there to serve people, and kindness was a really simple way to embody that. So no, we definitely didn't do a huddle, we didn't workshop it. It was instinctive, but I think it was what we needed at the time, and I think it's what the world needs right now as well.
I do too. A different kind of power.
We had a great list of nominees. There were some really outstanding people that put in big efforts over the last 2 years. The first one, of course, a previous winner of the Keneally Cup, was the dictator of the Socialist Republic of Victoria, Dan Andrews. And I just think that his credentials for this award, he was presided over the world's longest and harshest lockdown of any country, of any city, of any nation. Our other second nomination is an international performer. This is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. Famous for her quote, "We will be your single source of truth." And those that saw her speech at the UN over the last couple of days will remember that this is someone so inebriated by their self of righteousness, self-importance and superiority, that any views that are contrary to her are too dangerous and should be censored. This is the mindset of tyrants everywhere.
Dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth.
This is one of the most troubling, disturbing speeches for the new dystopian future we're looking at I have ever heard in my life from a politician. This woman is a horrifying mess and a blend of dictatorship, insanity, and totalitarianism.
It was what we needed at the time, and I think it's what the world needs right now as well.
I do too. A different kind of power.
She is a liberal lunatic to censoring online activity. Listen to this speech. This is horrifying. Check this out.
This week we launched an initiative alongside companies and non-profits to help improve research and understanding of how a person's online experiences are curated by automated processes. This will also be important in understanding more about mis- and disinformation online, a challenge that we must as leaders address. People who are vaccinated will still get COVID-19. It just means that they won't get sick and they won't die. After all, how do you successfully end a war if people are led to believe the reason for its existence is not only legal but noble? How do you tackle climate change if people do not believe it exists?
Listen to these people talk. She's comparing this to a war. What's next? You're going to mobilize the military to shut down our data centers? These people are crazy.
I think that sums it up pretty well. It's wonderfully put together a little video, and it segues. It takes us from what's happening in Australia to what's happening in the rest of the world. And I'm going to plow through this as fast as I can because I have gone a little bit further over the time frame I intended. I got a little bit animated, particularly during that first part. I don't know about you. I feel a little bit better when I vent these things. It's just good to get it off your chest and just get that ether out there. It's like people used to listen to some of the heavy metal I'd write and sing. That's you, but you're so nice because I get that shit out. Don't hold it. Let that out. Let it out. Anyway, so Epstein's attorney unleashes on Musk's really big bomb, responding to authority unequivocally and definitively. So basically in this, the lawyer reckons he spoke to old mate before he got knocked off, before he hung himself allegedly. Still waiting on good old Dan Bongino to show us that footage he's been talking about. I don't know if you heard about that one, but apparently he's seen footage. It shows that Epstein didn't kill himself, or didn't really show that he didn't kill himself, but it showed that he was alone. I don't know about what. I think either Dan Bongino is being led down the garden path by some wonderfully manipulative people, or he's been bought off, or he just. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, I think we've all looked and heard that Trump is on the list in some way, shape, or form. Elon's obviously pissed. He's having a go. Exactly what's happening and really going on behind the scenes is anyone's guess, but they're putting on a show. Maybe the show is intentional. I don't know. There's lots of ways to look at this scenario, and I think it could be this, it could be that, it could be anything. There's lots of things that could actually be happening here. But one thing's for sure, according to old mate here, he's lawyer, and you can trust lawyers, of course. They're not commonly referred to as liars for hire at all. Never heard that before. I just made it up, didn't I? That's the first time you've ever heard the term liar for hire before. So we should trust this guy. But anyway, he reckons that he's got nothing on Trump, right? And maybe there is nothing to it, but I don't know. Look, time will tell. Is this just a way of making sure the information comes out? One of the things that people say is, well, wouldn't the leftards have just brought this out? And of course, they sure, you can say that they are also incriminating files, but so what? They would have just released the part that incriminated Trump. That's what the leftards would have done, wouldn't it? Surely they just release that part, throw him to the wolves, and be the end of him. So it's not like they have to release the whole thing, But it's I don't know. Until that shit comes out, Trump's going to have to clear his name. And, maybe that's what Elon's pushing. For some reason, they're not releasing that information, and that in itself is disturbing. All right. Here's a good one for the energy scenario. We dealt with that in the Australian concept, but here we are on a world stage. Abandoned ship inferno to burn for a week. I remember when I was a kid, you used to see those oil tankers, and they'd be spilling out all over the place. They're showing you dead fish and fucked up penguins. And I swore again, quick sips. Wash that dirty mouth out. Anyway, a cargo ship abandoned in the Pacific Ocean will continue to burn out of control for at least a week as authorities struggle to rescue the stricken vessel. So I wonder why they're having trouble putting it out. They don't seem to talk too much about the fact that lithium-ion batteries just burn and you can't put the bastards out. And you know what they really don't like? Salt water. Or actually, maybe they do. If firing, burning, and carrying on is what you want, then you add salt water to the batteries. It's a wonderful mix, This morning, Midas was carrying around 3,000 cars en route from China to Mexico when it caught fire about 450 kilometers southwest of Alaska's Adak Island. The ship was ferrying 3.048 cars. What? Ferrying 3.048 cars? How do you get 0.048 of a car? I think something's gone wrong there. Must have been 3,000. I'm guessing that's supposed to be a comma, maybe. 3,048 cars makes more sense. I'm pretty sure it's not 3.048. Gotta love them typos. But anyway, 70 of which are fully electric. 861 are hybrid vehicles. So that's 950 odd, give or take. vehicles there that have lithium ion batteries in them, and they've come from that wonderful place, the home of fine China, now cheap Chinese shit. What can we say? Is it likely that these cheap and nasty batteries, and I remember thinking about putting batteries on the house at some point, and I talked to a dude, he's like, oh, don't buy the expensive, well-made stuff, from Germany and, Tesla and all that, wait for the Chinese ones to come out, the prices will come down. Well, hopefully it'll drive the prices of the good quality stuff down, because I ain't buying that cheap Chinese shit. Not that I really want to put that crap on my house. I just don't want to fucking pay fucking energy bills anymore. It's too fucking expensive. Anyway, according to unconfirmed reports, the fire broke out on one of the decks carrying the EVs. I bet you're shocked to hear that. I know I was. It's completely surprising. And it's not like this is the first ship that has done this. Tesla's huge AE shifts as Musk-Trump rift deepens. Interesting. Wonder if that's good for my shares. Anyway. The crew of the Morning Midas were unable to get the fire under control, and in consultation, the U.S. Coast Guard decided to abandon ship, whoop, 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 with all 22 sailors taken to safety. In the meantime, it's an ecological disaster. I mean, we just need pictures of dying penguins and dying birds and, dying friggin' fish and all the other things that are affected by this as it, burns its way into the bottom of the ocean. Is it possible to pull these things out? Like, I mean, look at it all. Look at all these cars, and imagine them all ready to catch fire at any given moment because they decided to save the world with EVs. Anyway, I think I've had enough of that fun with that one. Speaking of EVs, world's largest 100% electric ship launched by Tasmanian builder Incat. Fuck me dead. And in true style, they've called it China Zarilla. Now, I know what you're thinking, because probably the first thing I thought too is homage to the Chinese and their cheap shit lithium-ion batteries, ready to set the world ablaze. It's like a Viking funeral on drugs. Just pile in the corpses, have a Viking funeral. Oh, it cracked me up. In short, 130 meters long. Hull 096 is the largest electric vehicle of its kind ever built. What could go wrong? It's like the fucking Hindenburg on the ocean. With its maker Incat saying it represents a giant leap forward in sustainable shipping. Oh, streets. If I was a science fiction writer in the 80s, this would be gold. Oh my God. If only my crystal ball worked back then, I could have been a sci-fi writer. Anyway, 130 meters long. Oh God. Anyway. And it's a multicultural element of lunacy. In Tasmania, constructed for South American ferry operator, driven by battery electric power, called the China fucking boat, but will operate as China Zarilla, named after the Uruguayan star of film and theater who died in 2014. Like, what the hell is this shit? It doesn't even begin to make any sense. It's just like woke on woke on woke, to the point, like, I'm surprised there isn't some sort of gay orgy where they mutilate and kill children at the end of the grand finale of this satanic festival with a whole bunch of shape-shifting fucking reptilians or some shit just to make David Icke happy. What the fuck? Oh my God. Anyway, I can't laugh at this any further. I'm going to hurt myself. So back to the happy peacekeeping scenario of multiculturalism, I guess. This is the religious element. When I was a kid, there was probably still around too, death metal band called Deicide. For those who don't know, Deicide means to kill God. So, if I had more time, I would have done a wonderful little fiery animation, with kill the Christians and some sort of death metal lyrics, just to sort of really go in there with this whole theme of what's going on here, because we're going to dive into the multicultural realm of lunacy that is our planet Earth at this moment. Jihadist Muslims overrun Christian communities in southeast Nigeria. This has been going on for quite some time. Of course, where's the UN? Nah, they're fucking picking on David Crisafulli for locking up criminals, you know, not to be seen. Over 50,000 Christians killed in Nigeria by Islamist extremists. This is, you know, over the past 14 years, at least 52,250 Nigerian Christians have been brutally murdered at the hands of Islamist militants. Now, remember, we're also being told we should give a shit about Gaza at this particular juncture in time. It's pretty hard when you look at these kinds of things, you know. You know, did the Christian websites themselves say it's all by design? How Nigeria's Islamic extremists get away with killing so many Christians? It's pretty bad, you know. Why would you want to welcome these kinds of people into your own nation? It's fucking hard. I'm not saying that all Islamists are bad and they're going to turn into jihadist, machete wielding lunatics, but you never know. You know, you just don't know. I mean, if they can't get along in their own countries, why are we bringing them in? This is nuts. Suspected Islamic extremists killed 4 Christians in Sudan. Cool. What's happening there too, you know? It seems like a huge ethnic cleansing going on here. You know, Christians are being heavily targeted, or are we being intentionally provoked? Is another question I ask. Are they intentionally allowing the wrong kind of Muslim people, the extremist variety, for instance, into Christian cultures to do this sort of shit, to inspire us to go along with what Israel wants, which is perhaps expansionism? It's just a theory. I'm not saying it's actually happening and that's what's going on, but it's possible. Wouldn't you think? Settings. Disagree to all. Fuck off. Right. Catholic priests, 3 Coptic monks murdered in South African churches. Oh, South Africa's got the same problem too, you know. You know, it doesn't seem to matter what color you are. You know, everybody's killing everyone. That's wonderful. You know, this is how they've kept the war machine going for thousands and thousands of years. Quick, in the name of God, kill this. Quick, in the name of this God, kill that. Come on, brutal, murder, conquest, kill, kill, kill. Read the history books. But it's not just white people. Everybody's doing it. It's a new wave of wonderful fucking spiritual humanity here we've got here. Quick, if you just put a crucifix on the side of your machine gun, everything will be fine. You know, if you put a swastika on the machine gun, don't worry, God will look after you. Don't forget that 6-pointed star. That helps killing people too. And of course, whatever it is those Muslims use, what is it, that weird squiggly 3 looking thing, you know, that'll help you as well. All these things just let you know that God is on your side. Everything will be okay. You know, killing in the name of is Rage Against the Machine. Just adding to the fear porn. No, I'm pointing out what's going on. What I'm pointing out, Martin, is that this is the strategy. Yes, it is fear. That's what they're trying to do. They're manipulating everyone. Unfortunately, they're being successful about it. This is all that's all over the news at the moment. Look at this shit. I didn't write this crap. It's all over the place. I just found it. Historically, the persecutions of Christians in Soviet Union, you know, these things happen throughout here too. I mean, but then the point I'm trying to get to, you jumped the gun, Martin, is that the socialist regime wants to abolish religion. What better way to do that than to expose religion for what it's doing, but which is killing each other. It's supposed to be all holy and peaceful and forgiving and all these sorts of things. You want to keep telling me your religion's peaceful? Stop killing people. It's pretty straightforward, you know. The Bolsheviks were wonderful for these sorts of things, you know. But what was interesting is notice the words. This is where things start to get deep, all right? Adding to the fear porn was just the beginning. It's the segue. Look at the words. Vanguardism. Democratic centralism. If this isn't some form of weird-ass newspeak, I don't know what is. Democratic centralism. You know, these are the prospects. These are the concepts. This is what you've got to look out for, ladies and gentlemen, because in amongst all this shit, they're going to try and present you with a solution. They've engineered the problem. This is the problem. I've highlighted the problem. I've added to the fear porn. All right. But what I've done, now that you're all focused on that, beware of what's coming. Beware of what the vanguardism and the democratic centralism and the socialist constructs. You can see the manipulation. It's all by design, as stated by the Christians themselves in this particular scenario, all by design. You know, Yes, the fear porn is there. It's prevalent. It's all over the place. It's worldwide, you know. Gaza is the hungriest place on earth. Where's the UN? They're writing articles on it. We'll get in there and do something about it. You're supposed to be helping people, peaceful and all that shit. They've been standing by and doing what about this exactly? Fuck all. These people are playing ridiculous fucking politics. Israel bombs Gaza on the eve of their religious holiday. I have no idea what it is, but I believe it's, you know, the biggest festival of the Islamic calendar. And what does Israel do? Bomb the shit out of them. How's that? That just shows you that the Israeli government perceives themselves as, you know, their religion's better, or the fact that they're so just in what they do that they can attack them on their holy day. This is clearly trying to inflame the Muslim community. It's intentional. They want them to fire up. And this is going to become a big problem. They are all guns blazing to create chaos across the world. This is what's happening. At least 27 Palestinians killed on the third day of Israeli gunfire near Gaza, near an aid center. You know, I mean, it's turning, the whole world's turning against Israel. That's for sure. They're trying to create the ultimate holy war in this, as far as I can see. That's my perception of this, is that they want everybody fighting everyone. Ramadan, thank you. That's what it's supposed to be. Righto. The world is turning against Israel's war in Gaza, and many Israelis don't understand why. This is in 2023, all right? Netanyahu is turning Israel into a global pariah. The world has finally run out of patience. 2025. It took 2 years to go from, oh, people is just starting to turn, to apparently we're pissed off. What was all these freaking protests and all this other shit that's been going on about? People have been pissed off at them for a long time. Yeah. At the end of the day, what I see is all three of the major religions turning in on itself, you know, because if we can't inflame the racial hatred, we can inflame the religious hatred. And that's going to be wonderful, because that just really compounds the scenario, because the religious concept doesn't really expands past the color of skin in a lot of cases. You know, lots of people, I mean, it's truth. You've even got these woke leftist blokes dressing up as female Muslims at the moment. I'm sure that's going to go down really well if you parachute them into Palestine, but, you know, or any other of those Muslim nations that are hardcore Sharia or whatever it is, it's going to go down really fucking well. But at the end of the day, you know, what the point is, it doesn't seem to matter what freaking color you are, you know, when it comes to if you decide you're going to go this religion. You know, I've seen white people who are Buddhists, you know. Anyway, actually, I haven't seen the Buddhists getting in on this. Maybe they should start their own unholy militia or something, you know. But, you know, this is the state of, you know, religious belief. This is the state of humanity. This is the state of the UN really getting in there and defending peace and helping people. Look at that picture. That sums it all up. The world's finally turning against the war on Gaza. Trump and Netanyahu were marching in lockstep until they weren't, you know. This is the political games that are being played while people are dying, you know. Trump says Iran slow walking as Khamenei opposes nuclear proposal. So here we are. They've been wanting to go for Iran for a long time, and Israel have gone, well, we've been so successful in bombing the shit out of Palestine, and yeah, everybody hates us, but nobody's stopping us. In fact, the Americans are still sending them weapons. So why not keep going? Hey, let's keep moving. Let's get Iran as well. Trump says he spoke with Putin. Putin plans to respond to the Ukrainian drone strike, which happened this week. These are all events that have just been happening this week before I get accused of fear porn again. You know, President Trump said Wednesday that he spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin by phone for over an hour, and Putin told him that he plans to respond to Ukraine's drone strike on Russian air bases. No shit. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Zelensky's a fucking idiot. He's an absolute lunatic. It's been suggested that perhaps he's, you know, buying $27 million villas. You know, it's by multiple different nations, and lots of different places are coming out saying this guy's just buying up, you know. Where's this one? There's a few different places. Was a well-known comedian in Ukraine. I wonder how much the Ukrainians are laughing at him now. He and his architect wife, Elena, I'm not even going to try and say that, spent huge sums of money on from an Italian company in the name of a Cypriot company. A building bought this waterfront mansion. Wow. Well, what I can see, because there's actually a few different articles where he's done this in various different places. You know, he's buying himself wonderful fucking places. I see that his world's turning to shit. How many fucking places can he buy a property at? Because he's going to have to run away. Apparently, if you know, he bought Adolf Hitler's a property, or formerly known by owned by Adolf Hitler. Of course, people are saying that it's propaganda. It's quite possibly true. You know, Moscow Calling, the Russian propagandist outlet, reports another multi-million-dollar purchase by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. This time, according to the outlet, Zelensky bought a $3.2 million apartment in Baruj Khalifa skyscraper in Dubai for his mother's birthday. The publication cites a report with the Telegram. Apparently, it's just Russian propaganda, but we've heard that before, haven't we? We've heard the Russia things. What's true, what's not, who knows? Let's face it, there's a good chance he's up the duff, and you know he's just trying to find a place to go and run and hide when all this turns south, because I'm pretty sure it will. Again, if anybody wants peace and they want this to stop sending the guy fucking weapons. They can't sustain this on their own without the West support. So, but apparently they're still running wonderful cover stories for him. Time 7 reasons why Vladimir Zelensky crisis leadership has been so effective. Probably because the New World Order UN scumbags keep feeding everything they want and covering for the left, the lunatic as it is. It's laughable. Like, this article is not little more than a joke. It's not even really worth reading. You know, they reference the whole. Look at how much crap there's been published to try and say that he's a good bloke. They referenced all this data. That's how many articles they're writing to say this guy's a good bloke. You've got to be shitting me. He's an absolute cocknocker and an evil little piece of shit, just like the rest of them. They even made movies about this dickhead, The Making of a President. You know, it sums it up quite well here. In just over 3 years, he's gone from the Ukrainians' best-known comedian to one of the world's most recognizable, insert the word over the place of leader, dictator. Rallying his country. Let's say it's ripping civilians off the streets to go and fight a war against Russia they cannot fucking win. You know, like, this is nuts. You know, it does your head in. It really does. But just to keep everything completely nuts, if you haven't been kicked in the dick enough, there's a strange attempt to find Muslim Vikings. This article goes through it quite quickly. The decolonizing of Vikings is admittedly a difficult task. They were very good at colonizing other people's lands. You know, it goes through, a whole bunch of history and all this, and fundamentally states that the straw that universities are grasping at this particular point is during their plunder, they went and grabbed bits and pieces of, Muslim artifacts. So there must have been Muslim Vikings. Are you nuts? Seriously? You know, as this guy points out, you know, he was wearing a Chinese wristwatch. He must be Chinese in some way, shape, or form. You know, like, by God, it's nuts. You know, I've got American software on my computer. I must be American. You know, I've got cheap Chinese shit for all around me because you can't buy anything else. Like, you know, the amount of stuff in this house that has nothing to do with my cultural beliefs or benefits. You know, it's just that they just come from a foreign land. You know, I must be of those places. That's basically the kind of shit that we're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen. It's fucking madness. Anyway, I think I've smashed through that pretty quickly, and I hope I've illustrated the true point here is the game that is being played on the global stage here. You know, I'm not encouraging these wars by all means. I think it should all fucking end, and we should be looking for peaceful solutions to living in harmony with each other. But the way things are being done is clearly with the express purpose of setting us all against each other. They couldn't fucking create the problems that they wanted with, you know, various attempts, and now they're going full blown on everything they've got. They're pulling out every fucking historical trick they've ever used to try and turn this fucking planet into a giant fiery war-massing cinder block of horrible shit. It absolutely does my head in, the crap they're doing. There's a lot more stuff I wanted to get into. But I think we might have to kind of just leave it there because we're running out of time, ladies and gentlemen. Where was it? There is one thing I wanted to look at, mostly because I want people to sort of have a squiz at this. Browser is having trouble sharing a video. Okay, cool. That's right. I did this the wrong way. Sorry. So we want to go here. There was a whole medical thing, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff about Bill Gates and genetically engineered ticks, but I might come to that another day because it's actually quite lengthy piece, much like the rest. But anyway, look, haven't we all had enough of fucking GMOs and all that crap for the time being? It's a nice little segue, I thought, doing what I've done today. It's just the shit that's been thrown at me. So, but it starts off, I got sent this good old Tracy sent me this little thing here, and it's a very interesting flight path. It's flown from Townsville up to the Paluma Range, and this is all mountain. This is all Great Dividing Range. So you're probably thinking, oh, they're just crop dusting. The crops are along the road here. That's where all the cane farms are. This is mountain. There's fucking nothing up there but mountain. So why the hell is this plane flying all over the place like this? It's come from Flight Radar 2024, you know. So let's bring that in. And it's really easy to find. I just typed in Flight Radar 24. It was that simple. And here you can actually track all the flight planes. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to be a part of helping us out, just when you get a chance, go and have a look at some of these planes and just click on them, see where they're going. Because the fascinating part about this, you know, you see this, it actually brings up all this information and whatnot. But when you look at the one that was previously brought up here, I'll come back to it again. Sorry, I just got to keep switching because of the way this thing works. And you look down the bottom, there's no information. Nothing's available about where it started, where it's going, where it's arriving. There's nothing, you know. It doesn't tell you shit. Why? That's the $1 million question. Why? And that's an erratic flight path. That is not normal, you know, as you can see when we come back to this one. You know, and we zoom in here. It's a little bit more detailed. This is why I hate mobile apps. Mobile apps are shit in comparison to the desktop, you know. Here's the Paluma Range. And this is all, you can see by the geographical layout, this is all mountain region. There's fuck all here, you know. You know, everything's along the highway, you know. But so the way the weather patterns tend to form, you know, you get your wet, at this time of year, wet, cool air sort of thing coming up from the ocean, you know, mixing up with the dry air from coming in from the deserts, and it mixes up over the mountains, and that causes your tropical rain patterns along the coast. You know, the higher the mountains seems to be where you get more rainfall, so you obviously get more of it up north. The mountain regions around Townsville are not quite as high, according to the museum anyway. You know, but as you can see, when you click on any of these things, it comes up, tells you it's Townsville to Mackay, you know. You know, there's a whole bunch of shit going on. Okay, so it tells you that it's the airport. You know, we can check all flights all over the place and just have a random click and see where they're going. What are they doing? You know, we've got small, they even got different sizes so you can see, you know, if it's a small plane or a big one. You know, interesting. Here, not available. Why? What is it? You know, aircraft photo not available. If you have a photo and you want to, you know, wow, isn't that interesting? There's a lot of not available information. They just know there's a flight there. What's it doing? You know, is it just a, you know, a little test play? He's going round and round in circles. Now, $1 million question in this particular is, I just clicked on this at random. There's no plan here. I'm just making this up as I go. Is there some sort of crop dusting going on here? It's the aerodrome is around here. Are they putting on some sort of a show? You know, it started at 4 o'clock. So he started 20 minutes ago. He's been flying around, estimated, no idea. Going where, we don't know, but he's going around in circles. I'm going to assume he's landing where he's going. Why is that not put in there? You know, but it's possibly just a test flight. You know, he's probably somebody learning to fly, maybe, you know, commercial liners. But what we're interested in is, can we find ones that are doing weird shit? You know, are they perhaps spraying something they shouldn't be? You know, what's going on here? Here's another one that's sort of squiggling around and doing weird shit. You know, very strange patterns. You know, again, are they just test flights? But this is another one. No information. There's nothing. They haven't told. Surely they know where it lifted off from. Exactly, Brad. What is the propaganda? What isn't? And I'm not speculating anything, but isn't it interesting? How many of these flights can we find that apparently start nowhere and go nowhere? How often is this happening? And what are they actually attributed? There's no photo, there's no information whatsoever. They've got an estimated time of landing. So they know when it's taken off. They know when it's landing. They've got some sort of a flight path. You know, they've had to calculate it because otherwise this plane might crash into it. You got to know these things. He's possibly flying at a higher altitude, no doubt. You know, we're going to take 3 dimensions into account because, you know, we live on a flat earth and all. But joke. I don't believe the word's flat. But anyway, you know, the point is, how do you know that it's starting at 5:15 and you don't know where it started from? And you know it's landing at 5:50, but you don't know where it's landing. Isn't that a bit bizarre? What's the purpose here? Why? You know, we're going to have to start asking a bit more questions, ladies and gentlemen, of these kinds of things, you know, because it's all good and well to point this out, as somebody has done and sent in to me, you know, but see, that's another strange one from Emerald with no estimated time. I know, are they just out on a leisure cruise? Who knows, you know, but they've just taken off, they're flying around. This guy's, well, absolutely nothing on this one. Isn't that interesting? Flying from Emerald Airport. Isn't this an interesting flight path? So it's traveling along another flight path. It started in Brisbane, clearly from the here, but apparently they don't know that. Funny, isn't it? Flight Radar 24 doesn't know that it started there, where I can clearly see that it has. It's a very direct, straightforward flight path along a known flight path, judging by the fact that this is happening. It has no information on it whatsoever. It appears to be landing at Emerald Airfield, or at least flying over. Has it landed, or has it just made it look like it has? I don't know. Has it landed, picked something else up, and then moved on, perhaps? Going to have to analyze this a little bit more. But, you know, these are things I'm just randomly clicking on and having a look at. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd also like to do that, it's just www.flightradar.com. Have a look, see what you find. Thus concludes our wonderful Sunday drinking session. Hope you've enjoyed. Sips, ladies and gentlemen. We just got to make sure we are ever vigilant. Don't leap to conclusions. You know, I do get things sent to me all the time, which is wonderful, but I appreciate if people take the time to actually check to make sure that the information you're sending is 100%, because it saves me having to do it, especially if you cite multiple sources. Hey, look, I found this here, and then I checked it and found this looks pretty good. Obviously I'd really appreciate it if people actually, you know, took the time to do a little bit more than just send me a whole bunch of shit and expect me to decipher it and figure out what it is. Put something together and jump on the show. The primary purpose of setting up the North Queensland Freedom Networks was to encourage citizen journalism. I didn't want to have to do it all myself. You know, I'd really appreciate it if more people got in and used this. You know, producer is a busy boy. Yes, I am. Thank you. Me, myself, and I are having one hell of a time, but we're getting through it. We're having a good time, you know, and I want to thank my wonderful family out there for helping out with all they do. It's a bit of a family project, you know. Sometimes they're sitting there watching the footy, you know, while they do this stuff. So, you know, it's whatever. Sips, ladies and gentlemen. Glad you enjoyed it, Sam. Thank you. I do try to throw a little bit of humor in there instead of the dry, stuffy thing, you know. Like I could put a suit and a tie on there and a fake voice and pretend to be really interesting and cut my hair and shave my beard and be really, really straightforward and serious about everything and just take all the fun out of life. No, fuck that shit. Oops, better wash my mouth out again. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Any feedback? You know, I mean, we're trying to figure things out from numbers too, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. See, what you've just said there, Frag Pim, I'm not saying you're right, I'm not saying you're wrong. One thing I would like to suggest, and I was actually once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away, I was there at you know, a place I was residing at the time, and there's a knock at the door. I answered the door, and there's this elderly European gentleman of some description. I couldn't tell you by the accent. There to share the word of the Lord. I didn't even pick up what church he was. I didn't give a shit. Probably one of the Mormons or something to that effect, you know. And he had a younger fellow with him, you know. And he's, oh, I want to share the word of God. I'm like, look, mate, I'm not interested, buddy. You know, look, I've done the church shit when I was a kid. Excuse me, I better wash my mouth out again. I've done that churchy thing when I was a kid. And, you know, all the time I sat there listening to these boring people tell me all about what they thought. The only thing that occurred to me was, if I was Satan, you know where I'd hide? And the guy took the bait and he goes, where? In your bloody church. Have a nice day. And I closed the fucking door. But as he was about to, you could see the steam of hell firing from his collar, and it's coming out his ears and everything. He was so fired up by that comment as I was closing the door. But I peered a glance at the young fellow behind him whose jaw hit the floor, because that message really hit home with him. And the real truth of that is, if I was an evil fucker, that's where I would hide. I'd hide in your fucking church. The same way pedophiles pretend to be teachers and daycare people, and they do the right thing and they take in these poor disadvantaged children. And I know poor disadvantaged children have been taken in by those kind of sick fucks. So, you know, I know these things. That's exactly the kind of place you hide. You know, it's, you want to be a drug dealer, be a copper. You know, you want to be a pedophile, be a judge and a politician. You know, we're seeing that unfold, isn't it? You know, where would you hide? You know, and as pointed out in what was that movie? Help me out. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Well, I think there's an even better one, was convincing you that he was your friend. So take that to bed. Have a think about that. Personally, I would infiltrate every fucking religion. I would put my little minions in every fucking one of them. I'd infiltrate the governments. I'd infiltrate your police forces. Infiltrate everything. And look around. I have a feeling they did. Anyway, that's another happy note to leave the world with. Sips, I better wash my dirty mouth out. All that truth talking, horrible. Anyway, the point I was trying to make, any suggestions? Because we're trying to figure these things out from algorithms at the moment. You know, we're looking at data, like, cool, who's watching where? What are they watching? What do people like? What's successful? And I mean, at the end of the day, the problem with just looking at data is it's inhuman. It's very Terminator. It's very AI sort of driven stuff, you know. We're trying to figure out, thank you, Michael, I'm glad you agree, what's going on and what's going to work, and how is there some sort of algorithm that's fucking with things? You know, obviously there's systems in place. You know, AI is the idea. They want to monitor everything, they want to control everything. The last thing they want is people thinking themselves. That controlling information has always been a socialist dogma. You can see from column A and column B. You know, historically that's what they've always done. You know, and the information superhighway is the ultimate place to do it, because, you know, like, that's why I always try to enforce to the kids, you know, the books on the shelf, they can't reach in from cyberspace and change the print, but here they can jump into cyberspace and change anything they like anytime. You know, the funny thing is, particularly Wikipedia, when I go to look for something and I go, all right, cool, what's the worst source of information? Let's start there and then pick the peanuts out of that poo. You know, and it's amazing how often I look at particularly things that are very relevant to elements such as today, even that communism stuff that I brought up earlier, that had been recently altered. That was only, like, you know, because it tells you, you know, 6 days old, 7 days old, or whatever. So stuff that are historically significant from hundreds of years ago being altered to this date. How, what, why, where? So it's always a good idea to screenshot things whenever you can. You'll find there's like your 3 little bars or whatever, or 3 dots or whatever in the top right-hand corner. Generally, when you've got a website, if you're looking at things on your computer, take the time to press print. I know you think, oh, I don't want to print it. No, you don't have to print it. In the prints and options, it'll say destination. If you click on destination, you can choose your printer, or you can choose save as PDF. At least I can. If you can't, then there might be something else you need to do. But you can save it as a PDF, and that fixes it in time. It's solid. There's always the Wayback Machine, but it's a lot easier to just grab it while you got it, you know, rather than trying to find it later. Save that shit. You know, put it on an external hard drive, unplug it, safe. You know, back up everything you can. Find your information. Put it in. Use folders. Make your life easy. Don't just throw it all on the desktop. I know so many people do that sort of shit. It's so painful. Anyway, good order. Bring order to the chaos, ladies and gentlemen. Do some research. Please use this network. Contact me because you've done your own research and done all these things that I've suggested and found stuff and gone, wow, this is interesting. I want to present this on the North Queensland Freedom Network. Or it doesn't even have to be my show. Maybe you'd rather present it to, you know, Robin, because you're in Western Australia or whatever. You know, maybe you just align better. You know, we all think differently. We all get along with different people. Sometimes, you know, people will get along better with other people than they will me, vice versa. You know, it's just the way it is. And that's one of those things we have to accept, particularly in the freedom movement. And the conversation that I had with Michael the other day was, you know, very much, why is this infighting going on? And it's because of a lack of tolerance, you know. Look, you have to accept, I don't always agree with everyone. I don't always accept and agree with Michael's stuff. You know, he doesn't always agree with my stuff either, but we agree to disagree. We get along and we move along with what's got to go on. You know, I accept him for who he is, and I'm sure he does the same for me. You know, we don't need to fight and have a go at each other because we don't agree. You know, if anything, you know, this is one of the funny things, you know, like if you've got two different ideas, you know, and you're in a specific group or whatever, rather than go, no, my idea is better and let's fight over it, why don't we go, hey, let's have a competition. My idea is this, your idea is this, right? You go and do your idea, I'll go and do my idea, and we'll see which one works better. I've just solved all our problems. It's that fucking easy, ladies and gentlemen. You know, when I was in a band, I had a policy that every idea will be tried. When the idea is tried and proven to suck, then we can criticize it, you know. And many a time an idea came up, and I come up with, that was my rule. And, you know, I had to challenge myself, because people would suggest an idea and I'm like, I don't think that's going to fucking work. You know, I'm like, look, honestly, I don't think it's going to work, but I'm going to give it a try, because I'm going to stick by my own rules. If I'm going to set rules, I'm going to fucking stick by them, you know. And sure enough, I did. Sometimes I was right, sometimes I was wrong, you know, and it was good to be proven wrong from time to time. So actually, yeah, cool. I'm glad I put that rule in place, because that actually turned out to be a really good idea. It worked, you know. You don't know until you try, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, and it was vice versa. There was a few times, you know, other band members said, I don't know about Batty. That's a fucking crazy idea. What your suggestion? I'm just hear it out. Let's try it, you know. And we tried it, and okay, I stand corrected. Well done, Batty. You're on money there. That was a good idea. It worked, you know. You can't always see through other people's eyes. Let them paint you a picture. Hear it out. Communicate. It's not hard. It's not hard. You've just got to swallow a little bit of pride every now and then and listen. So drop me a line, North Queensland Freedom Network at protonmail.com. If you're feeling a little bit courageous and you want to present something, I'd fucking love to have you, my viewers, on as a guest. You know, become a part of that community. Be us. Let's all work together and make this shit work. Don't forget, in the description, we got the 7-day, well, it was a 7-day trial. Sorry, I had to update that. The new one, we got the 2-month free on if you sign up, you know, a whole bunch of bonus content, all sorts of awesome shit. That new link is in the description now. You know, make sure if you're interested in, you know, perhaps investing your money in a way to make money, you know, Stake as a go. I've been using Grok and AI to figure these things out, because I don't know. I've learned a lot of shit, I can tell you, by just punching numbers into AI and shit, then cross-referencing it. Don't chase it to trust it. You know, read up, do your research, and figure out what works. You know, I mean, for instance, I went and, you know, I don't like the banks, but I bought some Commonwealth Bank Australia stuff, because I had a bit of a falling out with them. I thought, you know what, next time I have a falling out, I want to walk in and say, I own stocks in this, and suddenly watch what kind of a reception I get, because you're a stockholder now. You're not just a fucking pleb off the street. Change your status, change the approach. And got my piece of paper here. I'm a stockholder. Treat me with more respect, asshole. That's just one of the strategies I have for the next time I anticipate, you know, some sort of a strategy, because, you know, or falling out, because they've had a go once, they'll probably have another go. So be prepared. Chance favors the prepared mind. Just one of the ways you can use stocks. Lots of different things you can do. Anyway, in amongst that, of course, the most important thing is don't forget to sign the petition to get rid of the horrific excuse for a council that we have. The link is in the description. You can also contact Troy Thompson, our the mayor that we voted for, currently not the mayor, but, you know, he's acting as a civilian to rectify a situation that's gone south. Thompson Troy J71@gmail.com if you'd like to help out with that petition in any way, shape, or form. Drop him a line. You can drop me a line as well if you need some help with that one. We've got till the 20th of this month, so we've got 12 days left, and Oliver's putting on a little bit of an event. Oliver, are you still there? I've gone blank on that date. I think it's the 19th. I think it was out front of the Townsville City Council building. So yeah, jump onto that one. Hope you've enjoyed the show, ladies and gentlemen. Please do let us know what you like and what you don't like. It's like the best feedback is straight from you, the people. You know, drop it in a comment, send us an email, whatever. Let us know what you like and what not. I may not see all the comments, but my wonderful team out there do. So, yeah, cool. I know how bad it is. Maybe another conversation I'm not seeing. And yeah, Brad, love to hear about you. I don't know if you responded in the comments. I didn't see it. Something's been starred. We've got here star comments. Can you invite Jody? Yep, I did that. We talked to that one. She talks of ruling with power. You're not words. Yes, you're damn right, Joanna. Actually, I started that one myself because I wanted to talk about it. I forgot about it. Yeah. You bang on. Those are the words of a dictator, and the manipulative language, the way they try to say we're so peaceful and it's love and it's humanity. Do as I tell, do as I say. You know, it's next level bullshit, man. Next level bullshit. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed. Well, that coaster's stuck. Hey, you remember those? Thanks, Adrian. I'm still using them. Cheers, mate.